Hey, Matt.
Hmm?
It's finally here.
You're talking about the Ready Player One thing.
Yes.
I know that because I have notes in front of me that say Ready Player One. And it'd be really weird if I had those there and we're not talking about it.
Dude, I'm so stinking excited. So the way we were doing this today is we each wrote a question for every single chapter. And I'm so stoked. I've been wanting to do this for a long time. I think this is going to be awesome.
We meticulously took time over the last couple of days to sit down alone with our computers separately to think of questions the other might really enjoy. It was just an uncomfortably large amount of thinking about you over the last day, if I'm to be honest.
It felt like writing a pen pal letter. It really did. About a video game futuristic fiction.
Every single question I wrote, I'm like, well, how will that make Destin feel?
That's exactly what I thought. And
I want him to feel good about it, but also pushed a little bit.
All right, should we do it? I feel like I need to acknowledge a couple things right up front before we do this. And then
you have the floor.
Okay,
do it.
So 2 things. Number 1, I want to say thank you to Joe Hansen from PBS. It's okay to be smart. Also, I want to say thank you to Audible, who has sponsored No Dumb Questions. And if you want to get a free audiobook, go to audible.com/No Dumb Questions. They're sponsoring this, and we're using it as a giant excuse to do a really fun episode about a book. I'm excited about it. Do you want to explain the rules and throw us into it, Matt?
I do, but why are you thanking Joe Hansen? What is his role in all? Did he write the book? Like ghostwriter?
He recommended the book to me.
So you're just generally thankful to Joe as a human.
Yeah, in general.
Okay, so he recommended the book to you. Did you read the whole book?
I did.
Before you recommended it to me?
I did, and I could not get you to listen to audiobooks, and this was the straw that broke the camel's back. I demanded that you did it.
I'm not against audiobook, or I wasn't against audiobooks. I mean, now I love them. I'm addicted. I have lots of old, stodgy books that I read for work, and so I just hadn't listened to, or rather read a book for fun in a long time. And then, this is important context for me for this book. My house flooded, so I had to spend all summer fixing it, and this book was like the accompaniment track to my fixing my house, and it made an unpleasant task really pleasant. So thanks to you also, Joe Hansen, for recommending it to Destin so that it got recommended to me, and then we recommended it to the internet.
Word.
Okay, so let's talk about how we're going to do the thing, because we could easily have a meandering 9-hour conversation about this, and there would be a solid 20 minutes of good content in there. But to make it good, we did write questions for each other with enormous care and precision, and we're just going to go chapter by chapter and talk a little bit about what happened in the chapter, and then bounce a question off of each other. Mine are all over the map. They're like you questions, plot questions, how are things in the world questions. Did you kind of follow the same format?
Similar. I have some that are just plot related. I want to keep it fun, right? This is a fun book. This is like, cotton candy. It's not really meat and potatoes or even vegetables, but it's just a really fun, entertaining book. A little bit thought-provoking, not crazy. And so I tried to keep mine in keeping in line with how it made me feel.
Yeah, it's like cotton candy, but it's like if there was like a mashed potato and gravy flavored cotton candy, it's like every now and then you get like broccoli cotton candy.
Yeah.
Because this book dips its toe into the deep water and the big questions here and there. And so I'm okay with that if we get there a little bit, but I agree with you. This is a big, silly, fun, nostalgia book with silly characters who do outrageous things in an outrageous world, and so I'm good with the fun approach as well.
Okay, so to start the episode, instead of our normal,
Wait. No, you can't go to the thing yet. Because right now there are literally billions of listeners who are like, oh, I didn't read Ready Player One. I'll probably hate this episode. I'm going to turn it off. But I would say to those people they should hang in for this episode, because the book is what we're going to launch off of into a bunch of other fun things. And so if you've never read it and you don't want to read it, stick around. There'll be a ton of spoilers, but you'll have fun anyway. If you're going to read it later, maybe don't. What, you're firing everyone?
I think they need to go read it first. That's just my take on it. I mean, we're allowed to have a differing opinion about that, right?
I don't know. Begrudgingly, maybe?
We should do a podcast. All right.
Oh, because we're different.
Yep.
Okay, tell them about the music.
Okay, so the intro music here is our normal intro music, only video gamified by Gordon McGladdery, because this is Ready Player One.
This is also my new ringtone. Okay, go. So once again, we're going to go chapter by chapter, starting with the prologue. And the prologue is way more important in this book than it is in most books. So here's my question for you to lead it off. Whenever you watch a movie or read a book, there's some point where you make a conscious choice to buy in and keep going instead of moving on and doing something else with your life. Why did you stick with this book after the prologue?
Oh, dude. It was very, very simple. There was a clear-cut goal. We had to go through the 3 gates, and we had to solve, a riddle, basically, to figure it out. I mean, it's really simple. You know exactly what you're getting into. You know exactly what you have to do in order to get to the end. And you know right from the beginning that our hero, Wade Watts, is going to do that. You just don't know how. It's just gigantic mystery box that we just get to slowly open.
A gigantic mystery box structured like a video game.
Yeah. What about you?
Bosses and all of that stuff. I was in a few pages in when I realized this is different from most of what I experience right now. I really like good storytelling, and I'm really tired of boring storytelling. And from the get-go, this was so weird and different. You're in a simulated world and everybody has superpowers, but some of them are really weak. And this guy who seems a lot like Internet God made this almanac that seems like Internet Bible. And people are trying to understand this Halliday guy better and unwrap the mystery. And so I thought, man, there's going to be some fun themes in here. It's going to be good storytelling. And it sounds like it is all drawn from the content of my childhood in terms of pop culture. So that's why I was in.
Okay, so here's a question I have about the prologue for you. How do you want to be remembered? Because clearly Halliday set up this whole elaborate thing, just to be remembered. And the part B of that question is, what do you think about when you see Halliday? Like, we have the advantage of having the imagination untarnished by a movie. By the way, a movie's coming out. So you had a mental image of what Halliday looked like. How did you picture him, and how do you want to be remembered? Because clearly that's why he made this game.
Fun. I picture him looking like a thinner version of comic book guy from The Simpsons. I think he's definitely balding in my brain, and he has one of those balding ponytails, and he doesn't dress real nice, and he doesn't wear like the form-fitting Smedium t-shirts. He definitely wears the hide the man nipple t-shirts, and I picture kind of bad posture and weird glasses that are maybe a tiny bit crooked, but also like blazingly smart and oddly confident, even though not great at social stuff.
He was
I think
Bill
I may
Gates.
have met this guy before.
He was Bill Gates in my head, like straight up.
Oh,
he looked just like Bill Gates.
Your answer was easier.
So how do you want to be remembered?
So a mix of comic book guy and Bill Gates. That's strong. It depends on when you ask me. If you ask me when I'm in self-important hero mode, I have all of these great ideas for how to solve the world's problems or do something awesome. If you talk to me when I'm at home and my kids are on my lap and we're watching a show or reading a book together, I would like to be remembered as someone who's really good at loving and caring for his wife and really good at caring for his kids and good dad. Someone who's gracious and left behind better things than what he found. Something like that.
Wow. Okay.
What about you?
I was asking the question from a different perspective because I made a video and put it in a safety deposit box just like this. And that was something that as soon as I read this, I was like, holy cow. So like the moment he died, this video goes live, right? And I'd made a video like that for my family years ago before Smarter Every Day or anything.
Is it still in play or did you take it down at some point?
It's in the safety deposit box. And so like my wife knows it's there and I'm like, hey.
On a 5.5 inch floppy drive?
3.25. Yeah. But I told my wife, I was like, hey, when junk goes down, there's a disc in there. You need to watch it. So I found this to be fascinating because I actually thought through something like this in the past. Anyway.
And because of the nature of that, you can't say anything you said on the video or it would ruin it and take away all the fun of you dying.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of fun in me dying. The first part of the video, I'll tell you this, is, whoa, I'm dead.
No, I'm sorry I answered your question all wrong.
No, I don't care.
It wasn't.
I just want to love people. I just want to love people, and I want people to love me.
All right, should we move to chapter 1?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, chapter 1. This is where we get the point of view of Wade Watts, the protagonist, and the world generally sucks. And it's like the 2040s, and he lives in the stacks outside Oklahoma City. So Pastor Matt, what is your reaction?
Oh, I love it. I love it when your questions start with that.
I
And
know.
I love it. I mean, don't.
Pastor Matt, what is your reaction to Wade's comments about God? Because I got some a couple of loud people on Twitter were telling me that they didn't want to listen to the book after that part. And I have my own opinions about that. But what were your opinions about what he said about God?
I thought they were honest and good and sounded like what it sounds like when a teenager doesn't believe in God. And I recognize it because I've not believed in God before. I'm not going to make it end to end in my life with uninterrupted theism. I had a chunk there for a little bit where stuff was weird and the whole thing that I'd been raised with didn't make a ton of sense. And I had to rebuild it for myself or decide whether to rebuild it for myself. And the stuff that he said didn't sound all that different from the stuff that I was wrestling with and thinking about. I looked at the same data he was looking at and came to a different conclusion than he did, but I thought it was honest. I thought it was helpful. And from a storytelling perspective, I think it helps you understand the motivating factors of the character. So I had no gripes with it. I mean, obviously I see it different. I don't think that faith or theism is a cruel joke perpetrated by people who just want to smooth you over and make you compliant. It can be used that way, but I still would rather see a character with motivations that make sense, who believe things strongly, than a smushy character who doesn't really think much of anything. What did you think of it?
I thought it was interesting. I thought it was brash. And as soon as I read it, I was like, all right, this book isn't messing around. I like it, because a lot of people would feel alienated at that point. But I don't know. I just like the fact that the author made a really direct decision and he just owned it. I liked it.
Do you think Wade thought that because Halliday thought it and he looks up to Halliday?
I don't know. I mean, if I lived in the stacks in Oklahoma City and everything was dismal and, my food vouchers got taken by my aunt and all that stuff, I don't know. I might have a different outlook.
I get the impression that if you project Wade out another 10 years, he might still think the same thing 10 years later, but I bet he would explain why differently. I think he has one main mentor in his life at that point, at chapter 1. And it's this dead guy who invented the Oasis. And he's immersed himself in this dead guy's ideas enough that I think it would make sense that he could look out the window and see the world is crappy. And then here's a dude who provides some order to that thought. And he looks at it and says, that guy's explanation makes sense. Humans are bad and dumb and selfish. And the explanation for why the world is the way it is because humans do dumb stuff. And there's no greater cause or no greater story.
Thanks, Pastor
But
Matt.
I think he's in process. Really? Do you think that sounded pastory? I thought I did a wonderful job of not sounding pastoral. So do you think 2040 will be as bad as how Ernest Cline imagines it in this book?
No, I don't think so. I did think it was interesting he referenced another city going up in a mushroom cloud. I thought that was interesting, but no, I don't think so. He's basically talking about an energy crisis, which is similar to what people expected in the 70s or thought was happening in the 70s, but I don't think it's going to be as bad. Generally, I think things are getting better, but that's a discussion for another day, isn't it?
I want to do an entire episode on that, and you caught me. My question was an attempt to get us into that conversation, but it's just a teaser, so that's good. Chapter 2. We did a whole episode on feedback when I was in Tempe, and I made a tent to hide in to have a conversation with you.
I remembered you were liquored up on Mountain Dew. I remember this.
I'm usually liquored up on Mountain Dew. And we talked about listening to negative feedback, which I don't want to give you a lot of positive feedback because I think it makes you weird. But one of your superpowers is that you are very good at not just listening to negative feedback, but you seek it out and then you never get weird and defensive. And I've tried to probe the boundaries of that. Like, I want to know what thing I could give you negative feedback on that would make you super mad, get you to flip over a table or something. And you just haven't yet. So I'm going to continue to push that envelope. But that being the case, as the most negative feedback welcoming person who I know, what was your gut reaction to Wade being able to mute things that people said and not have to listen to their feedback anymore?
Oh, dude, that's a great question. I think he used it cleverly. The way he used it in the book was to handle a bully quickly. And I could see myself using it that way. But I see how that could be abused in a really bad way. And I think it would lead to polarization in society.
Well, all you have to do is label anything you don't like hearing as bullying.
Yeah.
And then in your own mind, you can be like, oh, well, I don't have to listen to that because I don't like the way it makes me feel.
Yeah.
Whether it has merit or not.
Well, I would use it to mute crying children often. I'm sorry, I just would.
I'm past that phase.
Yeah.
Mine are just out of loudly cry about things.
Mm-hmm.
But I would have used it.
Oh yeah. That's a really good question. What you would have used it?
Oh, only on crying babies. It depends on when you're talking about in my life. There's some stuff where you start to feel like, I know what you're going to say. Look, this is not original. This is not an inventive. This is a talking point. And now you're going to repeat it with preachy, over the top superiority. It'd be really hard to keep my finger off the mute button for that. That drives me crazy. But sometimes I think I know what people are going to say, but I don't actually know what people are going to say. So using the mute button would deprive me of hearing things I probably do need to hear.
Okay, here's my chapter 2 question. So we are introduced to Artemis and the Sixers, right?
Artemis.
Which I really like the bad guys here. You dig the Sixers?
They're interesting to me.
Yeah, I like the fact that we have clear-cut bad guys. You know, it just makes you feel like there's a good guy and a bad guy team. So here's the question. If you were IOI, would you have designed the uniforms like they did, just straight navy blue uniforms with like, you know, like the Nazis had skulls on some of their uniforms or whatever, you know? Like how the
I think
heck?
you're thinking of Hydra.
So the question
Same
is,
diff.
let's say that you're in charge of a vast bad guy army, right? How do you design the uniforms? Because I think navy
Thank
blue
you for
uniforms
asking
are
me
pretty.
this question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Step 1, no helmets.
Obviously.
You just can't have helmets. Everything you love will get infiltrated if your troopers have helmets. So, no, I'm sorry. You're all going to have distinctive features. Be as crazy as you want. I want to know who you are by looking at you right off the bat. Next thing, I think the uniform thing is intimidating, but like navy blue, it feels corporate. It almost, I pictured them like wearing action versions of suits and ties. And so it kind of fit with the corporate thing. But if I wanted to scare people and I was an evil overlord, I would have like a bunch of different like little subunits of people wearing different fancy little outfits that are intimidating in different ways. Or I do like a demographic study of what's scary to different people. And then whoever I'm trying to scare, I dress my people up like maybe in scary clown costumes or something like that.
So you would actively go for the scare.
Yeah.
Like you would actively go to scare people.
Yeah. Did you
a scary clown costume?
Oh yeah, that's how I'd probably dress up my army, but no helmets. Did you play baseball growing up?
Yeah, of course I did.
And did you ever, get off the bus with your team and there's the other team and their uniforms just looked way, way better than yours and you thought they're probably better at baseball than me?
Oh yeah, no doubt. Like my son's team has a purple uniform. I'm like, I'm sorry, son. There's nothing you can do.
As a Colorado Rockies fan, it kind of hurt to hear you say that, but also but it's Purple Mountain's majesty, man.
I flirted with the Rockies for a season. I was like, I can't do this. These guys are awful.
Tell me about it. Oh, tell me. They're good right now. I mean, they won't be by the time this publishes, but it's been fun. So yeah, rabbit trail. I played college ball and I was a bit poor and underfunded. So I didn't have warm weather clothes and I played in Chicago. So I had to cobble together something to wear under my uniform to not freeze in Chicago's snowy spring. And all I had was this leather jacket, like cheap leather. And I had this purple, extra large, tie-dyed sweatshirt. And I showed up to a ball game wearing that tie-dyed sweatshirt under my uniform so you could see the sleeves and wearing a leather jacket over the top.
Did you ride the pine that game?
I did.
Yeah. I wouldn't let
I
you
never
play if I
came
was the
back
coach.
from that choice, man. I never came back from that choice. I really regret that decision.
Oh yeah.
But the point is, you got to be intimidating. And I'm not sure that the corporate suit thing is quite intimidating enough.
Oh yeah.
Scary clowns. Chapter 3.
Okay, chapter 3 is where they meet in the basement for the first time. And H and Parsable are in the basement. Do you ever assume that your conversations are private online?
I used to when I was young and naive. And I remember when the tinfoil hat people were like, people are listening to your conversations. And then later the government was like, yeah, we listen to your conversations. Oh, so now I know they're not private.
Yeah, I just assume that none of my conversations are ever private. That's the way I handle that.
How do you communicate online when you want things to be private?
I don't. I mean,
meet people in person behind the dumpster at the docks.
I just assume everything I ever type will be printed on the front page of the New York Times. That's the way I handle that.
That raises some questions about our text exchanges. I can think of a few things.
Well, just don't even worry about
want.
that. Don't even worry about that.
Okay.
Maybe I don't do a good job of it. I just assume it's going to be printed.
No, it's working. I just think you and I have a really different understanding of what the gray lady might put to print and what it might not. All right. Chapter 3, I at this point, I was feeling a very enjoyable rush of nerd culture. There'd been 200 references or something by this point. H and Wade are talking video games and bickering about video games. I'd like to bicker with you about video games. What was your first video game console?
Just NES. I mean, I played on an Atari that my uncle had, but NES was the very first. I remember the very first time I played a video game. Second grade, Mrs. Mayfield's class, I played Pitfall. Had no idea what I was doing, but I played a video game. Still remember that, Atari.
Your elementary school was better than mine.
You had to like do all your work and get good grades in order to do that.
I remember Pitfall. So Pitfall was your first experience with a video game. Mine, I don't know. I don't think I know.
Huh.
Yeah, maybe like Centipede or something. And I think somebody I knew got a 2600 and we played, who even knows? What were the games on the 2600? Space Invaders? Missile Command. We played Missile Command. Remember that one? That should be like your game.
No, I don't remember Missile Command at all.
Really? You got the 3 little bases at the bottom and the missiles come in. You got to line up and you intercept them. You got to time it so that the missile coming in gets picked off by the equivalent of your Patriot missile.
Well, every major video game, if you think about it, every video game usually involves the balancing of a kinetic equation. Like you got something moving at this rate and something moving at that rate, and you have to intercept or something like that. Or, there's a gravity vector, and so you run along and you jump and you have to time things. So it's usually always a kinetic balance equation. It's almost every video game, in my opinion.
Especially early on, all the games that we're talking about are timing games like that, and the game tries to change up the timing on you, and that's how it messes with you.
Yeah.
But as games went along, they went more in the direction of storytelling, and that's kind of what's fun about Ready Player One is it acknowledges the silly knock the thing back and forth, super basic stuff, but the storytelling is where it's at. So for me, the first time I felt video game magic is when I put in the gold Legend of Zelda cartridge in the gray box NES.
Oh, yeah.
That was like my oasis.
Oh, yeah. I beat that game 3 times in my life. Once as a child, once the senior year in college, and once last year with my children. Oh, wait, no. We haven't got all the Triforce yet, now that I think about it.
Well, then that doesn't sound very beat at all now, does it?
Dang, I got to go do that.
No, you're teaching your kids to be quitters. Chapter 4 was fun for me because it answered a question I had about how the Oasis works. There was a hint that Wade goes to school somewhere and well, who sponsors the schools? Who's paying for all of this? How does it work? So you get a description not just of how the schools work, but of how this whole Oasis universe works and people building their own planets to look like things they were into. It's kind of like Minecraft in a way. People just had unlimited creativity, except it's not all blocky and stuff. And he goes to school on a school planet, which sounds horrifying if
Ludus.
You're in 5th grade. Yeah, Ludus. And it also describes here that Ludus is a no PvP zone. So you can't legitimately fight with other people or kill other avatars at school, which I think is a great rule for schools. No killing anybody else's avatar. But it also describes that there are some zones where you can use technology and others where you can only use magic and some where you can't use either. I think I know the answer to this question, but would you feel more at home in a technology zone or a magic zone?
I don't really care as long as I understand the rules. Like if I understand the rules, I can play in any zone, right?
Well, sure, but okay, well, just which do you prefer in terms of fun? If you're playing a video game, do you like some kind of medieval story where you go back in time and you have to work with that set of parameters, or do you like the future stuff?
I'm cool with either one. No joke. Like, Zelda is a magic zone, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. But, I also played Top Gun as a kid. That's definitely technology. Got to use your AIM-9X, man. And so I'm cool with either one. But, as long as I understand the rules, the gameplay is the same. You just got to understand how to manipulate the system.
Can we agree that the in-flight refueling on the 8-bit Top Gun game
was impossible?
The most frustrating thing in the history of video games?
It was impossible. You can't do it. So here's my question from chapter 4. He's in world history class, which, as you know, is boring, especially when you have a boring history teacher, which you know all about. So he's in class.
Nothing interesting happened before now.
He is in class with Mr. Avanovich, which he said was a good teacher. But why do real teachers even exist in 2040 when you have like the internet and all of YouTube? Why would we still have real teachers? Is it because the human interaction is so important? Why isn't there, as CGP Grey calls it, a digital Aristotle?
Because a digital Aristotle cannot exist. A digital Aristotle would not have known to push back on the teachings of his programmer, Plato, and say, no, the world isn't how you think it is. It's this other way. Because teaching, we're trying to make it into a science where you push these buttons and then the kids get these things. But teaching is an art. And all the teachers out there who are really good at it know that it's an art. And I would like to think that in 2044, part of the reason they still had teachers is because they changed the way they evaluated the success of their students. And having the teachers there to get to know the students and be able to personally say, well, it seems like, Wade is getting this, but not this, but this really well. So I think there's the evaluation side, there's the creative thought side, there's modeling, thinking outside the lines, there's the mentoring side. I just don't think any kind of robot can do that stuff.
Yeah, I agree. Because the I don't want to let this other human down thing is such a strong factor in our lives. I think that's why teachers would exist in this society.
Great point.
Yeah.
Great point. And here's the other thing. The most basic job of the teacher is get to know your audience and then figure out how to make it make sense to that audience. You teach on the internet and you think a ton about who's watching this and how you can say it in a way that's going to make sense to the most people, right?
Yep.
I do the same thing on Sunday mornings.
Mm-hmm.
I don't talk about the Bible in a way that is meant to make sense for fancy people who live in another time or in another place, trying to make it make sense for my friends who are in the room. Chapter 5.
Okay, so chapter 5, why hasn't virtual reality taken off? Because they have this really cool description of how gregarious simulation systems created the Oasis in VR with the haptic gloves and, the visor and how cool that was. But why hasn't VR taken off today? Samsung's trying really hard, but I don't know.
Have you put on one of those things?
The Samsung ones? No, I haven't.
I've never put one on. All I know is when I see people using those in Best Buy, I feel pity for them. Like, hey, you have a bucket strapped to your face. I don't hey, dude, nothing personal. You look like an idiot.
Why
with
is your head in a KFC bucket? Yeah.
It's ridiculous looking.
I agree.
Is there anything more stupidly antisocial looking? I tell you what, man, the line between personal technology that we will accept and personal technology that we reject is, does it go over your face? Because remember when Google Glass was going to be the thing?
Yeah, or like
that's going to be a
Snapchat
thing now.
spectacles and stuff.
No one wants that. And part of the reason that you don't want it, Google Glass, I didn't like it because I don't trust someone who's wearing it. I can't tell what you're doing right now.
Yeah,
I don't know what's happening in your thing. It makes you weird and creepy and distant. And my buddy Adam thinks this thing is the wave of the future, and I constantly disappoint him by not liking VR attempts right now. But he's like, it'll be so personal. We'll all just sit in our living rooms with our buckets strapped to our faces, and we'll just talk into our buckets, and then the signal will just go to space and come back, and then the person right next to you, they'll be able to hear what you're seeing in your virtual living room that you're sitting in.
Yeah.
That sounds like hell to me. Like other humans you could have relationships with are right there in arm's reach, but Satan put a KFC bucket on your face and won't let you talk to them. That's why I think VR is not catching on.
Yeah, I would much rather play a Settlers of Catan round with like 4 people that I don't even know than get on online and play with my most recent clan whatever group or whatever they call it. Anyway,
well, and the board gaming thing, table gaming has really seen an uptick in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
As video game technology gets better, there's more of a desire to be with other humans and actually touch the pieces and move things around and bicker and fight in real life.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. That was my chapter 5 question. What's yours?
Halliday, I referenced it earlier, but I think we both see this the same way. He obviously plays something of a God role in the book. It's a metaphor. I don't think he imagines himself to be God. But we get introduced to his buddy Ogden Morrow in chapter 5. If Halliday is the god of the Oasis and the creator, who is Morrow?
I actually didn't have those overtones. I didn't see this as some big allegory personally.
Really?
No, I mean,
I'm not sure I'd say allegory. I would say there's symbolism. It's not a literal one for one like an allegory.
oh, okay. Well, that's me not understanding the literary term. But, yeah, because I'm not a fancy pants,
I
whatever
went to college for a decade to learn one literary term you don't know.
Exactly.
I just justified my existence.
So I didn't have those big overtones. Now, there were certain moments in the book that I certainly felt that. I'll tell you what those are later. But I don't really understand the question because I didn't feel that way. Ogden Morrow, I don't know. I want to address that in an upcoming question I have with you. Can we just do that? Can I take a rain check on this?
Yes, you can. And I know you want to get on to chapter 6, but let me expand that question.
Sure.
This book has matrix overtones in that there's a reality within a reality. And what do you make of the people who say the reality we live in is a simulation that's just too complicated for us to figure out, so we don't know we're simulated?
I think they overthink things. I'm like, okay, great. What are you going to do with that information? I'm hungry. I'm going to lunch. That's just where I don't get too philosophical about it. I know that makes me shallow, but that's where I'm at.
I don't think it does. A friend asked me that question in 6th grade while we were studying, and my mind dribbled at my ear.
Really?
Whoa. What if we're just like ants in a big thing? And what if the simulator shakes it up?
No, I don't have time for that kind of stuff. I'm too busy doing stuff.
Oh, my bad. I'll return to my laziness where I think about things that are dumb.
I'm sorry. That's the feeling I have when people talk about stuff like that. I don't know.
It's unknowable, so who cares?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, that's reasonable. Chapter 6. Question: have you ever studied anything as hard as Wade studied Halliday's Almanac?
Oh, man. Holy cow. That's a great question. Yes, I've studied, what was that class? Mechanics of Materials. Mechanics of Materials was a class I took in college, and you had to know a bunch of things before. It was like there were prerequisites, not just in the college curriculum, but you had to know things in order to even approach being able to solve the problems. And so it's like, if you take a bar and bend it, how hard can you bend it till it breaks? Sounds easy, very, very hard. Depends on the material properties, which is one thing you had to know. Depends on the actual type of force, whether it's a shear or a tensile or a compressive force. You have to understand all that. And then you have to be able to do all the math behind it.
How long did it take you to get to a place where you could do that?
Oh, it took all semester, but I got there. And it wasn't just knowing.
No, not just that semester, but I mean, how much time did it take in the general trajectory with prerequisites and everything to get to a place where you could do that equation?
A year and a half. I mean, it goes all the way back to, learning the foundations of algebra and all that good stuff. But I'd say a year and a half. What about you? What's something you've studied like this?
The Bible. I don't know if I've studied the Bible as hard as as Wade studied the Almanac, though. That to me is one of the really interesting things. And in the next chapter, we'll talk more about it. But for somebody who studies the Bible, the 1st century AD is the golden age. It's not that it was the best time. It's just that every little nuance about culture, every detail about 1st century AD Judean marriage rituals, like that actually helps you understand the Bible and Jesus better.
Oh, so you're saying the context of the 80s. If you understand the context of the 80s, then you can understand all these other things so you have to understand the secondary and tertiary things behind, the topic.
And that's why, spoiler alert, Wade wins.
Yeah.
Because he and his team did the work. They weren't a team at first, but he and his buddies did the work to immerse themselves in one era so they could understand the one who made the game and made the simulation.
I think my actual job is like that. Like, I have to learn a bunch of different things because what I do at work combines all kinds of stuff like radar, explosives, rockets, physics.
Yeah, all of those are the same for me.
You have to combine all that stuff together to do this one thing that I do. And so I really like that when you can see something really, really fast because you had the background and the foundational knowledge. It's really fun. And you understand things in context. That's a blast.
To clarify my earlier remark, that was sarcasm. None of the things you just described are a part of my work environment in any way.
Oh, whatever.
0 missiles, ever.
You know what I mean.
It's not a thing we do at church. But I'm completely tracking with what you mean.
At church.
But it's really fun when you come across something and you've nurtured the background knowledge enough that you're like, oh, I get where that fits. That is not just an independent bit of data that I need to read whatever meaning into that I want to. I actually know where that goes, sort of. And part of what impresses me so much about Wade in this book is that he's a character who's designed to have a place for every new bit of knowledge that he gets. And you can only get to that place through serious study. And I also feel a little bit ashamed that I think he has studied the Almanac harder than I've studied the book that I think God wrote.
Have you ever pulled a Pendergast?
Oh, remind me, what is the Pendergast?
The Pendergast
mean?
was
That's
the guy that found some information and he leaked it out to everybody.
Oh my God.
You ever done that?
Yes. I have a problem with that.
Do you remember what it was about?
Oh, which one? Disclosing to members of the church that my dad had secretly decided to move on and take another pastoral position somewhere else.
You did that?
I didn't mean to.
That's good.
I think they nipped it in the bud pretty quickly. I feel like I have so many examples that I'm drawing a blank. What, have you done it?
No, not that I can think of.
Come on.
Not that I
We're
can
supposed
think
to. No, here's how conversation works. We commiserate, and I get all vulnerable, and I'm like, yeah, Destin, I have a problem with that. And then you're like, oh, me too, even if you have to lie.
No, I'm not going to lie.
So-
I was
I'm going to
just
give you
hoping
another run at
I
that.
was hoping you would say
Let me
something.
let me reframe my question. Destin, could you please make up a time when you pulled a Pendergast?
Nope.
Come on.
Chapter 7.
Chapter 7. Wade went to school on this school planet called Ludus, and his big breakthrough to go and discover the first key, the copper key, has to do with that word. Breaking it down and doing a little word study on it, like, again, people do with the Bible and other important religious documents. But when you get past the moment of epiphany and you figure out that it really does look like Halliday put the first key on a school planet, raise the question, why do you think he wanted to give high school kids a head start?
I don't know that he wanted to give him a head start. He just wanted the entry to play to be simple. I think that's what it was. He wanted people to be able to access it, and so they didn't have to teleport anywhere. That's the way I interpreted that.
That's a good read on it.
Yeah.
I kind of wondered if maybe, because of the whole speech at the end about use this power for good and stuff, kind of wondered if he was hoping a high school kid would win because they'd be more malleable. He could influence them towards something good easier than he could a Sorrento type.
It's not a bad idea.
Yeah, I don't know. What's your 7 question?
Have you ever played Dungeons and Dragons? Because he found a module, the Tomb of Horrors, right? I have no idea what a Dungeons and Dragons module is. What is it?
I know, but not firsthand. When I was a kid, there were things you needed to look out for, like John Denver and crystals and Dungeons and Dragons. Those were the things that were going to ruin the young people's lives.
Yeah.
I don't even think pot was on the list at that point.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, everybody was pretty sure I'd become a Satanist if I played Dungeons and Dragons, and I didn't want to become a Satanist, so I didn't play. But my understanding is that it's like a guidebook, it's like a magazine kind of thing, and your characters do stuff, and one person plays the role of the dungeon master and walks everybody through what to do. And I think this comes up in Stranger Things as well. Another
does it make
80s.
Does it make us losers that we don't know what it is?
No. No, I feel enormously socially superior to everyone who does know what it is.
There you go.
I'm not giving that up. Chapter 8.
Okay, this is where he goes in and he plays the Lich at Joust. Now, you saw a Joust thing I saw on Twitter. Did you actually play the game?
Yeah, I tried it, but the machine didn't work very well. I tried the left side, but it was stubborn. I have played Joust before, though.
Oh.
Have you played it?
No, it's like two birds fighting. That's what I got from the book, right?
Yeah, I think you ride ostriches or emus or something, and it's like space bird joust. And it really is what you described earlier. It's just one thing moves at one speed, another thing moves at another speed, and you try and time it just right. When I was a kid, they had that at Happy Joe's Pizza in Makokata, Iowa. And I tried it once, and a bully kid just crushed me at it. So I decided that was for losers, since I couldn't win.
That's interesting because there's Happy Time Pizza in the book. That's pretty interesting.
Oh, yeah. Oh, and it completely reminded me of that.
What's your chapter 8 question?
Halliday designed this big, important challenge to center around one dumb video game. If everything, the well-being of everything you cared about and your future and all of humanity hinged on you winning or losing one thing, and you could pick the competition, what would you pick?
You mean it had to be something that I would just crush at?
What's the thing you're most sure you would win at?
Holy moly. One thing a skill that I have that for whatever reason I'm really good at is balancing a wheelchair on its back wheels.
you've mentioned this.
Yeah, I can balance a wheelchair on its back wheels, and I can just like ride around like that. I don't know why. It's like a wheelie, but there's 2 wheels. So I would,
Yeah, well,
or
if
the
I'm
backwards
the
bike,
Dark
obviously.
Lord who's trying to defeat you to conquer the world, I choose as my champion that guy from Murderball. I think you're going down.
What is Murderball?
You didn't see Murderball?
No.
There's a documentary about just some amazingly athletic dudes in wheelchairs who play brutally violent basketball in wheelchairs.
Oh, no
They're
doubt.
ninjas with their rigs.
I'd probably die. But okay, I would do the backwards bike thing instead. What about you?
Star Fox 64 multiplayer. It's just obscure enough that I don't think anybody's done it as much as I have. And I'm pretty effective.
Very
As
good.
long as I get the double lasers. I don't know. You got to get creative if you don't. In chapter 9, Wade gets a copper key and then he meets his dream girl, his internet crush, Artemis.
Yeah,
He doesn't
man.
know anything about who she is or what she actually looks like or anything because they're both pretending to be someone else for the internet. We usually think of that as being bad or two-faced, but probably to some degree. We all tweak what vibe we give off depending on who our audience is. To what degree would you say you have different versions of yourself?
You mean like in real life versus...
I mean, like in real life. Yeah.
That's interesting because sometimes people meet me from, they know me from Smarter Every Day, and they'll come up and say hi or something like that. And you can tell that sometimes they're expecting something different. I don't know. It's weird. I try to be the same person all the time.
When I've been hanging out with you and people have recognized you and come up, that they always say that. Go, you're just like you are in your videos. And then I mutter things under my breath that are critical.
But sometimes you're just like the guy eating tacos and you're not thinking about complex things.
Well, your last video, you were promoting a mattress and there was a golden retriever defecating in the background of the shot.
That's true.
So that feels like a guy who would just be eating tacos.
Yeah, it's pretty normal. It's pretty normal.
Do you act different around old people?
No, I don't.
You don't ramp up the respect level or anything?
Oh, I see. I see where your question's going. Okay, I do this. Like when I'm around people at work, like just the good old boys that, we weld things and all that kind of stuff, my Southern accent comes out aggressively, big time. And then when I'm in a more formal situation where I'm giving a presentation to a group of people, I try to kill the accent. That is certainly something that happens. And
Could you just say the phrase, I try to kill the accent in the most non-Southern accent you can muster?
I tried to kill the accent.
That's pretty good. Okay, let me try to say it in the most Southern accent. I try to kill the Southern accent.
That's pretty good.
That's the best I can do.
Yeah, it's something I do. So yeah,
Okay.
I guess
okay.
I am different. I chameleonize myself a little bit. And you?
Oh, I'm definitely different. Yep. I want to be consistent enough around people, but that I'm the same person. But at the same time, you show respect to different audiences in different ways. If I roughhouse around with my 85-year-old grandma, punch her in the abdomen a few times and give her noogies, that is not respectful. But if I do that as a 15-year-old with my friends, that is respectful. It's fun how you goof around. If I talk down and sweetly to my little girl when I'm tucking her into bed at night and the other one comes in and gives me hugs and I just cuddle them up, that's great. But if I do that to like a clerk at a store, it's just weird. Social common sense comes into play and you just take a little different tone with people so that the vibe you're communicating to them is, I respect you and I'm not a threat. I don't think that's lying.
This is something that actually happened to me today. This is rare, but I was talking to a 2-star general today. We were discussing
Yeah, I've been
something
there.
technical that happened, and there were people talking, and I chimed up and said something along these lines. It's kind of like when you're spraying water off of a lawnmower. Look, don't laugh at me. I know we're in Alabama, but it's kind of like that. And then I explained something very technical. No joke. That came out of my mouth.
With full Southern accent.
I think so. I don't know, but you got the point across. I like to explain
Yeah.
complex things with simple descriptions, and so that kind of worked.
You have a chapter 9 question?
I do. So this is the point where he met Artemis, and he had this surge from obscurity to popularity. And Artemis was like super ticked when she was passed by this guy that came out of nowhere, and she was like the famous person. Have you ever had a moment where somebody just like blows past you at whatever you're supposed to be good at, and like what's the feeling there?
Yeah, there was a kid who had never played baseball before on my 9th grade baseball team, and I'd played baseball a lot. And he was good at everything else, and I was only good at baseball. And that was my thing. And it was always like, yeah, well, you jerks, wait till baseball season and you see the things I can do. And this guy walked on the field, and within a week, he was better than me. He took my spot in the rotation.
Ooh,
He was batting ahead of me in the lineup.
that hurts.
And that was very difficult. And even to this day, he was the nicest dude. Great family. And I still deep down secretly resent him.
What a
I need to
jerk.
move past that.
What a
He's
jerk.
a jerk.
What's his name? Like first and last name?
His name's Toshio. He knows who he is. What about you?
No, I've never been frustrated with anyone. That's just mostly something that weak people like you do.
That's fair.
I'm just joking.
Someday, Mr. Destin, I hope to be more like you, winning all the time.
I'm joking.
Attractive. Everybody likes me.
I respected the part where Artemis was like, man, I've been trying to play Joust for weeks. I just can't beat him. Because, I had this buddy in school. We're still buddies. He lives here. And I would study really hard. And I got to the point where I could teach my fellow classmates. That's how I knew I had the material where I could, people came in and we would all study together and I could teach them the answers to the problems and how to get there.
Yeah. You don't know it till you teach it.
Yeah. No joke. This joker, Alan, would show up drunk, not joking, to the exams, and he would get A's. And every once in a while, he would show up at our little study sessions. He'd be like, hey, what are we doing? Yeah, go ahead and teach me. And it was awesome. We're great buddies to this day. But I still remember thinking, how on earth? I'm pretty sure you were tipsy at the exam that you did not study for, and you just tore me up. We're great, great friends now.
I bet there's a lot of people floating around in the world who have your name come to mind when they get asked a question like that.
Whatever.
Like, dude, he's got like shovel head and a mullet. And like if there was a part of the deep south that was like clear out in the Caribbean Sea, it's like that far deep south.
Yep.
And he's all disarming and stuff, and then he beats me at crap. I bet.
I don't compete that often. Chapter 10. Okay, after he got the key and all that, he ran and got the Dungeons of Daggerath, and he played it on the Trash 80, the TRS 80. At that point, he was playing a game within a game from inside his hideout. So we were several layers deep here. Have you ever ran an emulator on your computer and you're running like old video games? And have you ever thought about the fact that you're running a program within a program? And to me, that's just fascinating. Have you ever done that?
I hadn't thought about the program within a program thing, but yeah, I love emulators because they enable me to beat 8-bit games I couldn't beat with raw talent alone. That F5 save state, man,
Yeah.
just opens up your world. But yeah, I've got an emulator that I play some old games with the kids with, and I own most of those old games. They're still sitting around, so I feel slightly less guilty about it. But my kids need to understand things like, well, The Legend of Zelda and Double Dragon and things like that. But to them, it will always be a thing where dad plugged an Xbox controller into his laptop, then connected his laptop to the TV and did things on the keyboard, and we played. It'll never be the gray box.
That's cool.
Okay, I got a very different question that came to mind for you coming out of this chapter. The scoreboard pops up. Parsable goes from one of 300 million kids on Earth or whatever to the most famous person in the world, or just about, in an instant. And we quickly figure out that he loses his anonymity as a result.
Yeah.
You lost your anonymity at some point because enough people saw your face on the internet. Was there a moment of realization where you figured out that had happened?
Yeah, there was. 2 times, actually. Number one, I got off a plane in Australia to visit Science Week in Australia. And the guy taking my bag off the plane goes, oh, it's the guy from Smarter Every Day. And I was convinced that the person that I was going to see in Australia for National Science Week, I was convinced that he had told them to say that just to be funny, and he didn't. So that was the moment for me. And that was weird. Another moment was I used to not tell people my last name on the internet. I used to be Destin from Smarter Every Day. And I did an interview with a local newspaper. And I said, sure, I'll do it under the condition that you don't release my last name. And they were like, sure, no problem. And they did. And I said, hey, I called back the editor. I was like, hey, you said you wouldn't do this. And the reply I got was, well, is there anything factually wrong about it? I was like, no, that's my last name, but you said you wouldn't release it. And they're like, okay, well, we have a policy where we don't edit things if it's not factually wrong. And I was like, what? What? And so
they earned your trust.
Yeah, exactly. So I just made a mental note never to work with them again. But that was the moment my last name got out there. I couldn't get it back.
The moment that happened for me was I posted a video on something from history one time, and then about a week later, I was getting dinner with my mom, and she was like, I saw that video you made. It was good. It's like, oh, guess I've arrived.
From your mom? Whatever, dude. You have people call you.
In chapter 11, Wade has to reenact the lines from the movie War Games, which I only very vaguely remember. But it also got me thinking, I don't know if I could do that with anything. Is there anything, movie or otherwise, that you could reenact entirely from memory if you had to pass a test?
That was actually my exact question for you. I think the only couple of things would be poems. There's If by Rudyard Kipling. I think I could get close on that one, maybe with a little bit of practice. But there's another one called El Dorado by Edgar Allan Poe. I could nail those. What about you? Could you do any movies?
Yeah, if I can trail off at the end, I can get a lot of stuff. Like, listen, my children, and you shall hear of the midnight ride of Paul Revere. Hardly something to if by sea, and then the shore,
and
the
then
British.
something like the British are coming.
I'm in a tunnel. I'm going through a tunnel. It's Paul, British, and that's the closest I can come. I don't have it, man. Maybe the Princess Bride. I don't know. You try me. Do you have any Princess Bride lines?
Princess Bride lines. Let me see. Rodents of an unusually large size.
Yes, those are a thing that was in that movie.
Okay, good.
I think I passed the test. Chapter 12.
Okay, Ogden Morrow gave them advice while he was doing a news interview. It reminded me of like the guy in Vietnam that was getting tortured and he blinked torture into the thing. So he was like communicating.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he was communicating like past the interviewee. I thought it was pretty neat. Anyway, I didn't like this part of the book because the concept that news broadcasting would still be a thing in 2040, I just don't see it happening. Do you think that's going to be a thing?
Wow, I hadn't thought about that. I know that I really dislike the current state of national news, global news. Cable news to me is a flaming disaster. Like it used to be that news would tell you things that were true, and then you would know things that are true that you didn't know before, and then you'd have to think about what to do with that. And now they're all just unapologetically partisan. If you want to have your ideas reaffirmed about this, watch your team's channel. If you want to be really mad at how stupid everybody else is, watch the other team's channel. But like,
you think it's going to be a thing in 2040?
Who does investigative reporting? And therein lies my answer. I think if investigative reporting is part of the deal, there is a future for news broadcasting because that provides a service we can't get for ourselves. But if all news broadcasting continues to be as opinion yelling, I think it'll run its course and it won't continue to exist. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the everything else about this book is, completely true and real, with the exception of that one point. I don't think there's going to be news interviews.
Everything else.
Yeah, everything else is right.
Unquestionable.
Yep.
Chapter 13. Can we agree that IROC is the worst Gunter in the book?
Yeah, unapologetically. And I do hope that H follows through with the, hey, I'm going to kill him. And then when he respawns, I'm going to kill him again. I hope that happened.
Likewise. When you were listening to the audiobook and you heard IROC, how did you picture that name being spelled?
IROC. Exactly.
I did too.
Yeah.
And why did you think that?
Because of Camaros, I think. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's where my brain went too. And I don't want to insult car people because I'm not one. But to me, I always associated the IROC with like kind of the person who thought they had an awesome car, but your car really wasn't that awesome.
Whatever, dude.
So you thought you were special.
Are awesome, dude.
Yeah, but I don't know. Like I said, I'm not a car guy. It just seemed like a dopey car to me.
Really?
Maybe it's because I was deep down jealous or whatever. So when I heard IROC, I was picturing like, a poser mobile or something, but it's actually spelled I and then ROK, like just I rock. Now, I did not drive a poser mobile. I drove a Datsun 210 hatchback
from
cool. 1979.
A Datsun B210? That's what I learned how to drive a stick shift in. My granddaddy took me out into the pasture and was like, that's the clutch.
Was yours dung brown?
It was orange. It was even worse.
Okay, well, with age. Yeah, my thumbnail, I could jam it into that thing, and the keyhole, the ignition was so worn down, I could just start it with my thumb eventually.
That's awesome.
Yeah, who needs keys? Okay, so IROC's awful. We can agree with that. But if you think about it, IROC did us a favor because he released the information about where the copper key was hidden, and as a result, the next two Gunters to find it were Daito and Shoto, and they would have remained in relative obscurity if IROC hadn't been a dope. So
Right.
we do owe him a grit of gratitude. That's what we owe him, man, right there. Or a debt
Grit
of
of
gratitude,
gratitude?
if you're into English and stuff. So now we've met all 5 as of chapter 13, all 5 of the main Gunters, H, Artemis, Parsable, Daito, and Shoto. Who's your favorite?
Shoto, no doubt. Like he's
Why?
he's the most selfless. I mean, he's serving Daito basically. He's got loyalty. He's got all the right things. Shoto's my favorite.
And Shoto's the little brother, right?
He's the short sword. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's got like the odds are kind of stacked against him. He's kind of relative obscurity, compared to the other ones. He's cool playing second fiddle. He's just there to serve. I like him. You?
Yeah, you stole my answer again.
No. Yeah.
Definitely Shoto.
Yeah.
My reasons are a little different, though. When we get into the big battle scenes and H and Parsable and Artemis start throwing around their snappy one-liner gamer banter that I thought was just awful and uninspired and dumb, Shoto doesn't do it as much. He's got the Bushido honor code thing going. So there's more of a sense of respect coming from him and how he does all of this. And I enjoy the good-natured ribbing of the others, but I like the quiet dignity of Shoto, and I like what he did in the end.
This is when Sorrento made the initial offer. He's like, hey, come work for us, and we will give you more money than you've ever imagined in your entire life. So what would you have said to the offer?
If I was Wade, I would have said exactly what I said. But Wade was like borderline religiously indoctrinated to think a certain way about this.
Yeah.
All of his peers, all of everybody he respected thought that the corporate thing was like the worst, most evil thing ever. And presumably it was pretty bad. But outside looking in, and I don't know if I care that much about who wins the thing. I'd assume it's not going to be, and it's a lot of money.
How about this? Pretend this is
Okay.
a real question, and you have to like give me a 1-sentence response. You can't like game it out or get all philosophical.
gaming.
Yeah.
All right.
Here's a
This
question.
is hard for me, but I'll do it.
Hey, Matt, we work for a really big company, and we see what you've been doing on your YouTube channel that you've been working on over these last few years. We see your, 10,000 subscribers. We were just wondering if you would sell it to us for $75,000.
No.
Why not?
I still have plans for that. I care about it, and I don't know what you're going to do with it. No. Do you have another number you wanted to throw out?
Yeah, I was just thinking about blowing up your house if you did. So there you go.
Let me just
Give me your
pull up
YouTube
my
channel for
insurance
$75,000 off.
and I can do better than 75,000.
Yeah, you see how that works?
Yeah, but 75,000. I mean, they offered him millions on millions on millions.
They did. Okay, but after they said, okay, well, we're going to blow your place up where you're at right now unless you give us the information. Go ahead and give it to us. We'll give you money or we'll blow you up. Okay, at that point, what do you do?
At that point, I'm shaking hands and I'm moving on.
Yeah, exactly.
And the difference there is 4 people live at my house who I love more than anybody else on earth. Can't even take that risk.
Do you think he killed his aunt or more importantly, Mrs. G?
Oh, you're doing that thing again.
What?
Where you take something that someone did passively and assigning blame to them for what the person who actually did it did.
Yeah, so we don't even
No,
have to have,
this-
yeah, I agree with you. We don't even have to.
Yeah, it's Sorrento. And you know this.
Yeah.
Sorrento has the blood on his hands, and it's just that simple. No, but okay, well, how about this?
For me, this was the moment that the book got good. It's like, oh, snap. They did
Yeah,
real world
actual
stuff.
stakes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. This was the moment where I first started to feel, fancy literary term that I like to use, jeopardy.
Yeah.
It felt like, man, something could actually happen here. And when you watch a show and the only character who experiences jeopardy is the main character, you don't get on edge. You know everything's going to be fine.
Oh, yeah.
But when you watch a show like Game of Thrones, where they just kill main characters whenever they feel like it, you're always on edge and it keeps you more engaged.
I agree.
I'm sure you loved the moment where Wade provoked Sorrento, ran the offer up, messed with his brain and stuff. I mean, that's the kind of thing that's just kind of fun to have a laugh at.
So you're talking about that part where he said, if your boss gives me your job and they fire you, then yes, I'll do it. That part?
Yeah. Yeah, it was delightful. It was really fun and satisfying.
Clever. Yeah.
It just was a bummer that he wasn't allowed to record it because that would have been YouTube gold even in 2044. But you asked me the question, did Wade kill the people in the stacks by his decision making? I say no. But could Wade have avoided that result by not arrogantly provoking Sorrento?
I don't think so, because he gamed it out and he's like, there's nothing that I can do here that they won't. You just go ahead and kill me anyway. There's no out. And I think he was right about that.
Fair enough.
Yep.
Did you hate Sorrento at this point? Was he becoming a legit bad guy to you?
Like, this was the most bad guy moment of the whole thing for me. This one, from here on out, he was just like the bad guy. We accept that. But this was the bad guy moment for me. And it was clever and good and all that stuff.
It was for me too. And one of my biggest disappointments with the book that I otherwise really like is there should have been more Sorrento evil. He didn't do enough bad stuff. One big moment of I did a naughty thing. It didn't do it. I didn't like him, but I didn't see him enough. He wasn't on screen enough. He didn't say enough. I didn't get his motives enough. So I agree. If this is when he shined, but other than that, I mean, he's just in a robot for a minute fighting somebody and we don't really encounter him again.
So chapter 15 was the first meeting of the High Five in the basement. And my question is, why didn't they form this like super alliance right then? Why didn't they do that?
That's a great question. In hindsight, it would have been the right time to do it. And if they had, maybe Daito doesn't suffer the fate that he suffers. But at the same time, they're the High Five. And there's a rule, among serious Gunters that you don't team up with people and you don't accept help. And with so much at stake, basically the winner is going to become God of the internet. You don't want to have second thoughts. You don't want to second guess yourself and be like, well, if I hadn't partnered up right now, I would be God of internet. That's a tough pill to swallow for the rest of your life. So I would say pride. I would say looking good in front of the rest of the Gunter crowd and encouraging them to stay strong. Because if they set an example of let's all team up, well, maybe the Gunters decide they should team up with the Sixers and it could backfire on them that way.
Yep.
I don't know. Maybe I'm just making stuff up. What do you think?
I have no idea. I thought it was dumb. They should have formed an alliance.
I thought chapter 15 was so uneventful. The only thing that happened that really mattered was the comic books getting knocked over by the invisible thing.
It was all character development. 15 was all character development.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm being too hard on it. Because we did learn something about everyone in the chapter, and that's an okay thing, especially coming off of a big action chapter in 14. Yep, okay, I'm going to get off my high horse and not criticize that. Who did you find yourself most angry at over the stacks blowing up?
Nobody. I wasn't angry.
You just don't mind when trailers get blown up?
Oh, the stacks. I thought you were talking about the stacks of comic books. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, those just fell over.
I was most angry at the cops for not investigating it, for knowing that the stacks got blown up and that they were just going to say, oh, it's just another drug lab. I was angry at the cops for not getting to the bottom of that myself.
Yeah. I was angry at the school administrator who, for some small fee, sold out a student. I mean, it's a student. What are you doing? It's just some kid.
Your answer's far better.
The thing about both of our answers is it means that Cline did a good job there of demonstrating how wrecked society was at this point. It's just a mess. People don't care. And a bunch of people died, whatever, meth. Cops don't care. News doesn't care. School administrator doesn't care. It gives you the sense that these guys are genuinely on their own. I thought chapter 16 was super fun because you got to see the larger outside world for the first / almost the only time. There's a little account of Bryce Lynch. That's the pseudonym that the Wade takes on. You get to see a little bit of his trip cross country to Columbus. And it is dark. It helped me understand why people would rather stack their trailers on top of each other.
In the bulletproof bus? Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, with armed guards and everybody plugged into a KFC bucket over their face, wiggling their arms around and convulsing in their seats. Gross.
It's awesome.
You think traveling on the public transportation is gropey now? Wait till it's like that. Ugh. So they get to the thing. You needed to make that sound. Ugh. Otherwise, it seemed like you were in favor of groping. So the thing that's fun about the scene, though, is that he gets to start completely clean. Everybody thinks he's dead. He doesn't have anybody to be beholden to. No one he's ever met in real life.
Only in real life.
Yeah. I mean, there's no human in real life who he owes anything to at this point.
Yeah, that is
He's
cool.
totally on his own, and he can do whatever he wants. And most people never have to game that out, never have to actually make that kind of a decision. But I bet a lot of readers read that and salivated at the idea of scrapping it all and making a new life. And it does sound kind of romantic and fun. But I'm guessing if you were put in that situation, you'd want to stand pat.
Stand pat? Is that what you said?
Well, yeah, I just mean, like, if somebody offered you right now
Stay
the
put?
ability to just go make a new life, like, I don't think you're swapping it out.
No, I'm not going to swap it out. I like my family way too much. No doubt. You know, I have thought about how cool it would be to, like, go back and not be an engineer, like, try to be a doctor or something super challenging, something that I'm not suited for, just to see what that would be like. I've often thought, man, wouldn't it be cool to go to medical school? Because, you know, you'd get to learn a whole different set of skills. I've thought about that.
Yeah, I think about stuff like that.
So my question is completely different. There was this moment right here where the Sixers started farming the key and just running people through and getting as many as they could. What did you think at that point?
That's the kind of crap stuff that happens mostly in video games. Every now and then it happens in real life, and I react to it the same way. My overdeveloped sense of justice kicks in. We played a softball game a few years ago. It was co-ed softball, which is the worst. It's a bad environment. It's the bottom level. You got huge disparity in skill level. Girls who've played forever, dudes who've never played before. And there's a dude on our team who's a good dude, good athlete, never played before. He didn't really understand the rules of the batter's box, and neither did the umpire. And so he steps to the plate and he steps 1 foot out of the box and kicks in and digs the dirt and stuff. And the pitcher quick pitches him. And the umpire allows it and calls it a strike. Well, I step out of the dugout and I go over and I'm like, hey, he had called for time. He had a foot out of the box. That was a quick pitch. You just can't do that. The guy's like, I'll call the game. Oh, we're in a fight. Okay. And so then I tried to explain it to the batter, but he didn't get it. So he dug in again and got his hands ready. And just as he looked up, the ball was already there. He struck out on 3 straight quick pitches, never even looking up. And the umpire just let him do it. Man, that's the only time that I've come out of the dugout and just straight up argued with an official over that. Because it's not the sport. You're gaming the system. It's a crap chump move to win in a dumb way. And I felt the same way about the dirty Sixers doing this. That's not the spirit of the game. How did you feel about it?
I was ticked because it's not that just they were farming the key. It's that they were trying to set up shields around it to prevent other people from playing fairly. I didn't like that part. That's what I didn't like. They were being obstructionists. And I have a problem with that.
But on the other side of the coin, like the fun of the whole book and the tension of the whole book is that there are no rules, or pretty much no rules. So you can buy whatever you want. You can get these artifacts, do whatever you want to try to win. It just feels dirty and not in the spirit of things. But the fun and the tension does come from them doing stuff like that.
Yeah, I agree.
Those are the kind of video game players, though, who you wish ill on.
These are the
Call of Duty players who sit in the corner
and camp.
Spawn camp. Oh, it shouldn't still make me mad. I'm an adult. I have kids, but it does.
It does. This episode of No Dumb Questions is obviously brought to you by Audible. Now, we could give you a really long ad, or we could just say go to audible.com/nodumbquestions, because books like this are awesome. And we're probably going to do this again in the future. We really enjoy this. We like reading and we like talking about the books. So there you go. Audible.com/nodumbquestions. Get a free trial. Any book you want. We just happen to like this one. Who knows what we're going to do next? Now it's time for level 2. All right, here we go. Level 2. In chapter 17, Artemis and Parsable started dating. Can you relate to romantic feelings getting in the way of your actual work?
For the most part, romantic feelings just help my work because my wife is the most ridiculously smart, supportive person ever. And so she does a really great job propping me up when weird stuff happens or when things are difficult and making me feel like I can get through weird stuff and do my job well. So I don't know. Okay, yeah. I can relate to it getting in the way of sports. From when I was a kid, there was a girl that we had on a baseball team that when the girls and the boys would still play together because we hadn't really gone into softball yet for the girls. And I really liked this little girl and I really wanted her to like me back, but I batted 9th and I played right field. So that it really cut into my opportunities. But I think I spent more time trying to impress her than play ball. So yes, I can think of once, but I have to go back to when I was 9.
Yeah, my wife totally made me get a B in physics. She was distractingly beautiful. Yeah, I know. I got a B in physics in college. It's my jam.
I feel like you're a rocket scientist.
It's my jam. She messed me
You're
up.
going to
in the
want to
head.
get A's in physics. I just feel like that's more of a compliment to her than anything.
Yeah, no.
Okay, so on the subject of love, when it comes to movies and books and TV shows and stuff, do you like love stories? Are you a sucker for that?
Oh yeah, no doubt. In my my
Really?
college literature class, there was a story, and it was about these people that were in love, and they were about to like get, I don't know how it was going to end. The love was going to end, and I made a case somehow about it. And the professor looks at me and goes, "Oh, you're just a hopeless romantic. You just want everything to work out and people just always be in love." And I looked at her and I said, "Yeah, that's exactly what I want. That's exactly what I want. What's the problem with that?"
And then you kicked over the mic stand and walked out?
I tossed my table up in the air and then just like, I'm out of here.
That sends a different message.
I'm going to a zero gravity dance party later.
So when I want to go to that, when your wife, is sitting there scrolling through the Netflix stuff with you, and she comes across like the time traveling philosopher's wife or whatever, do you watch that stuff with her?
Yeah, it usually works out well for me, so I would, yeah.
Okay. You're making some good points.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. All right. Well, what about this
Strategery.
story? Did you like this love story?
Okay, yeah. In chapter 18, the zero gravity dance party was freaking awesome. But here's the question, though. Would you have accepted that invitation to the party knowing that the Sixers were like going to know where you were in the open? Would you have gone?
Depends on how much I like the girl. Yeah.
Here, let me give you some background music for the dance party, and then you can decide over the music.
Oh.
Boots and cats
Okay.
and boots and cats and boots and cats and boots and cats and boots
Keep
and
going.
cats and boots and cats and boots
Yeah,
and cats
you
and
know-
boots and cats and boots and cats and boots and
I
cats
think
and
normally I would
boots
say
and
no
boots
from
and
an
boots and
abstract.
cats
Just
and
keep
boots and
going.
cats and boots and cats
Distance.
and
And I would
boots
say,
and
wow,
cats
that
and
wouldn't be the
boots
best
and
call
cats
because of the
and
risk.
boots
But
and
the
cats
heart is a
and
weird
boots
thing,
and
man.
cats
When
and
that
cats and boots and cats.
opportunity to
Okay,
connect
I'm
with
tired of
someone you're
doing that.
really interested in, then I can't finish my answer. No, I get why he went. I really do. Because I'm now to the point where I know what it's like to love somebody in ways that are very steady and very rooted in your history, and that have moments of just overwhelming emotion and also moments of just sober, man, I really appreciate you. But it's steady. But I also remember what it was like when I was a kid, and I just could do nothing but think about some girl I had a crush on. And in the days of long distance, I just would try to save up $5 so I could make a 3-minute phone call to talk to some girl that I met at camp or something like that. I made a lot of poor priority decisions based on crushes, so I can't judge him. I get it. Would you have gone?
Yeah, it's Aug's party. You go.
Yeah. And you get to space dance, which I assume in my case would be just a floating version of awful white person dancing that I do normally while standing there. I don't think it would do anything to accentuate my talent. I think it would just exaggerate the shame.
Boots and cats and boots and cats. And boots and cats.
Just let me hang there for all that time.
I
So
did.
you could do freaking that. Okay, that's good. That's good. Okay, here's your question. Wade showed up to that dance party in like a Ghostbusters DeLorean.
And shrunk it and put it in
Mashup?
his pocket, which was awesome.
Yes, very Ant-Man. If you were showing up to that party and you could design any iconic vehicle from history, what would you show up in?
Ooh, that's a cool one. It has to be a vehicle. I could show
I
up.
think so.
Dang, that'd be really cool.
Oh, and he took Knight Rider. Knight Rider was the other part of that iconic vehicle, so that's
Oh,
off
that
the
is-
table.
That is cool. I would probably do. There's this this train that was stolen during the Civil War. I think it was called the Sherman or something like that. It was stolen from Chattanooga. It was a really big steam engine. I don't know. If I could just show up in any magical vehicle, I'd probably do something crazy like that.
Yeah, that would be crazy because even shrinking it down, it would look really weird in your pocket. I think I would go with probably something from Star Wars seems appropriate. Maybe like a Star Destroyer. Everybody's going to think in terms of a personal vehicle. I'll just show up in something the size of a planet.
That's
Or maybe
pretty good.
Airwolf. No, Airwolf. I would show up in Airwolf.
The Bismarck. I would show up in the German battleship.
I would show up in the Titanic, but
In
not
May
sunk.
of 1941, the war had just begun. You know that one?
No.
The Germans had the biggest ships that had the biggest guns. You don't
Keep
know
going.
this.
Continue.
The Bismarck was the fastest ship that ever sailed the sea. On her decks were guns as big as steers and shells as big as trees. You don't know that Johnny Horton song. Are you being serious?
No, but that's the kind of song that Johnny Horton records.
Yeah, I love it. If that was a flick sync, I could sing that song.
Oh, well, there, you can win at something now.
There you go. Okay, in chapter 19, he set up exercise safeguards. Do you do anything like this for personal self-control reasons? I literally have a piece of software called Self-Control that keeps me off of Reddit.
Really?
Yeah. Do you do anything like this in your life where you like, I do not have the personal self-control capabilities to abstain from this, so therefore I will isolate myself from it in a certain way. Do you do anything like that?
No, I just recklessly indulge every impulse I feel, and that's why all of my relationships are a dumpster fire. Tell me about this app.
Yeah, it's called Self-Control. It's an app on the internet. You can download it for a Mac, which maybe that's why you don't have it, because you're on the dark side. But you can put it on there and you can type in a blacklist for websites you don't want to access, and then you type in the amount of time you want to not access it. So right now, if I pull up Self-Control, pulling it up, my edit blacklist right now, I just have reddit.com in it. But you can make a whitelist. Like if you whitelist block, you can only access the domains that you put on the list. Something to think about.
Does that work on you? I mean,
Yeah,
why can't you just bypass that?
I could if I go to another computer or something, but like you can reboot your computer and it doesn't work. Yeah, I'm smart enough to get around it. But a lot of times when I go to Reddit, it's just like the mindless, oh, I'm bored. What's on Reddit? It's that, right?
Yeah. I don't think I do that very much. I think I probably indulge things too much. Maybe I'll download the app. So my thing on chapter 19 is, can we do some kind of like content warning real quick? Like with a siren or something? There's some stuff about sex stuff that's in there. And so if you have the kids, this is your spoiler. Skip the discussion on chapter 19 warning. If you skip forward like 2 minutes, it'll be better. I promise. My question for you on this chapter is, up until this point, it seems like we're maybe just doing another young adult fiction thing like Harry Potter or Ender's Game or Hunger Games or whatever. And then all of a sudden, the main protagonist goes out and buys a doll that he wants to use for special time. But I was kind of relieved to find that he found his doll disappointing and discovered that there was just no way for this excellent simulation that is the Oasis to properly simulate genuine human intimacy. Why do you think that's hard to simulate?
I don't know. That's interesting because people try. I watched my daughter play with a small robotic animal tonight. It was a little teddy bear that would talk to her, and her name is programmed into it, and it said, "I love you," and then it said her name. And she was hugging it and dancing around with it. But I remember thinking, wow, that's interesting. We're trying to replace human emotions with a programmed whatever, and it just doesn't work. I just watched it not work with her. And so I think that's interesting. We humans are made or programmed, whatever you want to think, to interact with other humans on a heart level. I think that's really neat.
One of the really interesting and appealing things about sex and sexuality is that level of human connection is given a physical expression that is as close as you can be to somebody else. And so kind of all of the vulnerability happens. And at least in my opinion, part of what makes that work is the vulnerability on the part of the other person as well. Like just here's everything for better or for worse. And with a robot plastic sort of human, you can't simulate vulnerability. You can't simulate intimacy at that level. And so it made me like Wade better that he found that gross.
Yeah.
We had one of those bears too that talked to my kid and would say, "I love you."
Yeah.
And it's just, it's disgusting. And so eventually we called it Creepy Bear, and I would take it around the house and hide it in the dark and then wait for my wife to come in, and I would activate it. It would wiggle its little arms like in the middle of the night. I want to be by you.
Yeah.
Oh,
I want to wear your face. So in chapter 20, he talks about Falco, which is his stronghold. Everybody wanted to hide out.
What do you think he named it, Falco?
because it sounded awesome. He said that. It's cool.
Really? That's all they said? Because I thought it might have been named for the guy who did the Rock Me Amadeus song.
No, he said in the book, he's like, I just think it's a cool name. Like, he straight up said that.
I think he was afraid to admit that he likes Rock Me Amadeus.
So here's the question. Did you build a hideout with a kid? Because, like, I don't know. I did one. It was underneath the porch, and we called it the Ninja Turtle lair, and it was awesome. So did you have one of those?
I'll answer that question in a moment. What did you put in the Ninja Turtle lair?
We had a cardboard refrigerator box that we turned on its side, and we were able to roll it. Like, we would crawl like a hamster in it, and it could roll over things. And so the next door lot was unmowed. It had tall grass, and we could roll over it in the refrigerator box. We called it the turtle tank.
No, that's legit.
Yep.
We did several different forts. The most ill-advised fort we ever made, there was a big, and I say was, great big pine bush out at the end of our driveway. And my friend and I just took a sheet of cardboard, and because we were jealous of other people's tree houses, we were like, we're just going to make a tree house. And we put the cardboard on top of the thing, and then we climbed up a ladder and jumped off the ladder onto the cardboard and assumed it would just form a fort inside the tree when we jumped on the cardboard. But
no,
it just split all the branches off and destroyed the pine bush.
No
and
broken legs, I hope.
I was in trouble for that. Yeah, but the guy down the street who had the tree house that I was jealous of, that thing was up until last year. I drove by a few months ago and saw that it was gone. I thought, well, now neither of us have a tree fort.
Those
sucker.
kids that had the tree forts never appreciated their tree forts.
No.
I was really whatever. My buddy had one.
No, they didn't.
He didn't take care of it like I would have.
It was weird to me that Wade had to go to work. Didn't he earn enough money from all of his
sponsorship deals?
Fame and everything that he wouldn't have needed a job? But he's working in Columbus. What was that about?
Well, he had to buy that straight fiber connection to, the GSS servers. So he had to work. He was splurging on stuff like that and electricity and stuff. So yeah, that's why he worked.
Okay, he was paying for his Oasis habit.
Yeah.
All right. That works for me. I thought I'd found a plot hole and I was terribly clever, but you make sense.
One other note in chapter 20, this is when he went on that quest with Daito and Shoto, and he basically purchased their friendship at the end by, giving them the beta capsule. I thought that was a pivotal moment in the book.
I'm telling you, man, Parsable is best when those guys are on screen. His exchange with Shoto that's coming up in a couple chapters, I think was Parsible's best moment in general.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. And it's because he's thinking about selflessness. And it's interesting how the Japanese culture plays into it. I thought that was really interesting. What'd you call it, the Bushido Code?
Yeah, it's like the samurai honor chivalry code, the equivalent of chivalry in the Middle Ages in Europe.
Okay, in chapter 21, we are introduced to Findoro's Tablet of Finding, which I thought was an incredibly clever plot advancement device. I thought that was really, really smart. Can you think, as a history dude, can you think of a moment in history where like one team had something that was the equivalent of Findoro's Tablet of Finding? I kind of thought about the Enigma and, the Ultra program that the Allies had to actually read the Enigma code. That's the closest thing I could think of. Can you think of anything else in history?
And maybe
like
the corresponding Navajo code talking that couldn't be cracked the other direction?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's all the legends about Greek fire that we're not even sure we've ever been able to figure out exactly how they were doing that. It's like the green fiery stuff that they used in the Battle of the Blackwater in Game of Thrones, if you remember that.
I do, but what is it was just a super weapon. This is I'm talking about an intel thing.
Yeah, okay. All right. Man, I don't know. You might have come up with the best example right there. I mean, I can think of cool deceptions. We talked about that a few episodes back. But
that's cool.
Well, I'm not sure that intel has ever been as needed as it was in the last 100 years. I mean, before that, you can't really hide where your army is or what you're doing. I mean, the scale was so much smaller in warfare.
Yeah, I just thought that was interesting. What was your takeaway from chapter 21?
Well, I was really intrigued by this Captain Crunch thing. First of all, Captain Crunch is delicious. Secondly, there are toys in Captain Crunch, and that makes it even more delicious. And yes, I still would dig for those if they're in there. But there's this thing that they talked about that I'd never heard of, where this guy named John Draper figured out that a whistle in a box of Captain Crunch created just the perfect tone to somehow be able to hack the phone networks in the 1970s. And everything else that's referenced in this book, I had some context for. The only thing I had a context for here was Captain Crunch. Have you ever heard of something like this?
Kind of, yeah. So the dial tone system is pretty interesting because you can have multiple tones on top of each other. Like, I don't know if you know this, but like if you get a old school dial phone, it works like this. There's a tone for each row and a tone for each column. Were you aware of this? A different frequency?
I've noticed it, but I didn't know why.
So like if you dial the letter 1, like burp, that is 2 tones. That's column 1, row 1. If you dial number 2, that's column 2, row 1, and it's 2 tones superimposed on top of each other. No joke.
Whoa.
My dad's crazy, like smart at some weird stuff back in the day, back during these analog stuff. I won't go into the story, but I will say this. From a recording of somebody dialing a number, he was able to figure out what number was being dialed by matching up the tones and then just looking at it on an oscilloscope. Crazy.
No way.
Yeah.
This is the kind of thing where if it was still technology that was in use, I would have thought about it at some point. But it's vestigial technology. I mean, I haven't thought about what a dial tone would be for.
What do you mean? That's how it still works.
Well, yeah, but now aren't the tones? It's computerized. It's not hackable now.
Let me see if I can. I don't know if I have the ability to play this. That's a 3, 2, 1. But you can do this.
Wait. Yeah, I did that. It's working. Keep going. Round it out. Bring that home.
That was important.
That's close enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, you did have to do that.
Yeah.
Was it your cell phone?
That was my cell phone, yeah. So,
really?
I mean, those tones,
I haven't noticed that.
You didn't notice that? So like 3...
No, that's still how it works?
Yeah, it still works that way. You can still use old phones.
You gotta be kidding me.
Well, I mean,
just when you start thinking, oh, I'm smart, something like that comes along. I had no idea, man.
The phone freaking stuff, I mean, they used to have it set up where you could unlock like long distance calls and stuff with certain tones. And in the whatever, what is his name? Draper?
Yeah, John Draper.
Yeah, he figured out how to access all that, secret underground submenus of the phone companies by recreating these tones. It's pretty interesting.
There was this whole, it was like early hacker community of that's what they did. They just messed with the phone signals to try and figure out what the design was. And the Draper guy, he kind of disavowed the hacking side of it. He was saying it's just a system. I wanted to decode the system and figure it out. So does this mean that literally these guys were picking up a phone, they get their dial tone, and they just blow the whistle into the phone?
Yeah, they could do that. You could go to any payphone, and if you knew what you were doing, you could call anywhere in the world back in the day. They called them phone freaks.
Wow. Well, I certainly learned something. In chapter 22, Wade Parsable goes to Happy Time Pizza, which is an expression of Halliday's arcade that he went to when he was a kid in his hometown. Did you have a hometown arcade that you went to play video games?
Yeah, at the mall. It was pretty cool. But, I didn't get to go that often. But when I did, I usually watched the kids play Street Fighter, and I just stuck to skee ball.
Did you get tickets for playing skee ball?
Yeah. Yeah, you did.
Did you save them up?
Yeah. I mean, it's the worst deal ever, right? But that was the only way I could earn money in my brain, were the tickets.
Yeah, it's like early Bitcoin that just performed much, 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 much worse. So Street Fighter?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's our slight age difference shows up there because my earliest arcade memories, well, yeah,
I didn't say that was my earliest. I mean, the earliest was like at the skating rink or whatever, but like, hey, I'm going to the arcade. That was in the Street Fighter era.
Okay. We had that Happy Joe's Pizza, had like 4 or 5 video games. They rotated them through. My parents would never give me quarters to play, so I very rarely got to do that. But it was really fun to just go over and watch the demo, play through again and again, and memorize how the little guy would fail. And then when I finally started mowing lawns and making a few bucks here and there, I would blow money like an idiot at arcades. And the game I really liked was the dual screen X-Men game where you could pick like Colossus or Wolverine, and I was always Nightcrawler. And I figured out this hack where you could just jump back and forth and do this stupid kick. And for a quarter...
And nobody could beat you?
Nobody could beat you. No. This kick move is just awesome. There's only like 2 things you have to watch out for. Kick move. And so all I would do is jump, turn the stick, kick. And I'd play for an hour on 1 quarter and beat the game doing the same stupid move the entire time. And for a while, people would gather around and be like, oh, look at this guy. He's going to do the thing. And then the novelty wore off and it got pathetic. And I was just there like with my collar up, like, well, I'm going to do the thing, everybody. But nobody would gather around anymore.
Yep.
And so I brought my kids to an old school arcade in Denver a few months ago. And I invited them over to the X-Men machine. And I was like, guys, watch this. I just couldn't quite remember how to do it. So I died a whole bunch and they got bored and they left. And I just realized that my life has changed a lot.
That's an excellent story, Matt. I'm glad you told it.
Thanks. You seem like you genuinely appreciated it. Are you good at Pac-Man?
No, I'm not at all.
I'm not either. I don't know how to do it, but it sounds like the score that he scored was awesome. So good for him.
Yeah, I found the perfect game of Pac-Man to be the single most unbelievable thing in the book. I mean, you can't do that.
I wouldn't watch the person record a perfect game, which, by the way, the all-time high score has been beaten since the time the book was written.
Really?
And yeah, the ghosts, they don't even turn color when you eat the little power pellet thing as you get into it a ways. Like it doesn't do anything. It just becomes another little thing for you to eat. So I don't even know what a perfect score means, but I'm sure it's terribly impressive.
Yeah, I thought the quarter was cool. Chapter 23, the Battle of Robbaz, this was like a super time-sensitive event. You had to be like online at that moment or you wouldn't know exactly what happened. And that's when Daito was killed, of course. I thought that was interesting because that's a twist in the whole thing that you had to be online. I really have no question. I just thought that was interesting. I just wanted to say that.
I'm in the same boat with chapter 23, and that's interesting because this was the moment where it occurred to me, this riddle was unsolvable. All of this stuff, the whistle thing we were talking about over the last couple chapters, the way it rounds out, the gate, and all of this business, there's no way that these 2 riddles could be figured out by a normal reader. Impossible. And normally, when you have a riddle-driven storyline like this, you get to the end, like at The Usual Suspects, and it all comes into focus. And you're like, whoa, it was this all along. You got me. But even as I got to the end of this book, on multiple readings, I felt like, no, this is entirely here to just impress us with how smart they were and for us to realize we could never do what they were doing, which wasn't totally fun for me. It would have been more fun if I could have solved it too.
On chapter 24, he obtained this key from Robbaz and he was like on top of his game, but he was still very alone. There's this moment where he wants to like go talk to Artemis, but she's not answering.
Yeah.
So he turns to his computer Max until he ran out of things to say. And I could relate because there's been times like where I've been on top of my game and I've felt, accomplished in the eyes of the world. But at the same time, I was like lonely and tired on the inside and just wanted to call somebody and talk to him, but it just wasn't happening for whatever reason. You ever feel like that? Kind of a downer,
It is a downer. And if you have to explain why what you just did was cool, then you're talking to the wrong person. You're not going to get the satisfaction you want. And the other thing that I find is it's that windshield time principle. I mean, I've got a few numbers on the speed dial that I will go to for, well, I got an hour and a half and nobody's in the car with me, catch up with a friend. And, so I call you if you're not around, or I call Adam or, just these 3 or 4 friends I have. If nobody answers, I suddenly have this existential crisis. Like, what have I done? I've lived all these years and no one loves me. I'm alone in this kingdom that I've built in this Jeep.
Yep.
It's dark.
What was your question for 24?
Oh, my question for 24 was about how much you hate Sorrento at this point.
Oh.
Wade hates him. Wade's going crazy over him, but I still did not really hate Sorrento at this point. It feels like the game is more the big enemy I'm worried about
Yeah.
than Sorrento.
Yeah, but I mean, it feels like they're closing in on it, and it's like, something's getting, yeah, I agree. Sorrento, he could have been so much worse. He should have, they should have built another Mrs. G and just offed her right there.
just to make us like him less. Disposable characters.
Hey, Mrs. H. 25 is where Shoto and Parsable had this super respectful meeting. What was your favorite part of that?
There isn't just a favorite part of this conversation. This is my favorite part maybe of the book, because I was having a problem to this point in that I just didn't like Parsable that much. And I never really came to like Parsable that much. For me, Halliday's the most interesting character. The creativity of the story is what carries the whole thing. But Parsable I found often unrelatable and found his motivations to be simplistic and not always that fun. But right here, I loved him because he demonstrated empathy and concern. He even acted in a way that was culturally appropriate to show concern for somebody from a different place. And I have to think he did a little bit of homework to even know how to communicate that the right way, or had to dig in the memory banks to get that right. And then, I don't know, I feel like Shoto kind of got the bad end of the gift exchange. Like, here's a sword you'll never use for anything. And sure, okay, I'll take a giant 500-foot tall
here's
mega
a beta
robot
capsule.
that'll
Here's a
ultimately
sword.
be the reason why I win and you don't. But they could have known that part in advance. So for me, it was nice. I felt like Parsable was humanized and likable, more so for a minute. What about you? Where does this rank for you in terms of your favorite Parsable moments?
Oh, I dig this. I thought it was pretty cool. I like that he slipped Shoto some skin when he showed up. He's like, this big, morning robes type meeting. He's like still slipped him some skin to throw back to where they did the quest together. I thought that was cool. And so I don't know. I really like this part. And this is when Parsifal realizes that it's in the real world for Shoto as well, which it has been for him for a really long time. So this is a moment where it's like, hey, you get it. There are very few of us in this world that get it, and you're one of those people. That's why I like this part.
Wow, that's a really great observation. Yeah, that makes me like it even more. I would have loved more stuff like this. We get a moment like this with H a little later on, and we get an attempt at a moment like this with Artemis at the end that I will talk more about later, but that I didn't think was as effective. But it seemed like it was so easy for Parsifal to just do the shrug and move on thing with other people. Think about it, regret it. It's a bummer I don't have those friends anymore, and keep moving on. This speed bump for me was really humanizing. I liked it. 26.
So I haven't seen Blade Runner. What is the deal with the unicorn?
Oh, Blade Runner with Harrison Ford. If I remember right, there's a really big payoff with this. Oh, what do you call it when you fold stuff up? Origami unicorn. That is like the giveaway that helps Harrison Ford's character figure out whatever the thing is. I haven't seen this thing in forever. I saw it when I was a kid and I didn't get it, but I remember the unicorn.
So it's a major plot progression thing.
It's a huge plot thing. It's a subtle little thing that you think doesn't matter, and then you see it later, you remember you saw it, it all comes together. Yeah.
Gotcha.
I just like the fact, and even though I don't have great affection for Blade Runner, it for some reason hadn't occurred to me until this point in the book that I could just make any fictitious location that has captured my imagination ever if I had the Oasis. It was fun that, Wesley Crusher, Will Wheaton, is the one reading this, and he was on Star Trek The Next Generation, and that is what introduced us to the holodeck. Did you ever watch Star Trek, or are you cool?
Yes, I did watch Star Trek. I don't know the plot and all that good stuff. I just know they explore and
they fly around in space and they see stuff and stuff, whatever.
Yeah.
The holodeck episodes deal with a lot of the same stuff that Ready Player One deals with, getting lost in this invisible virtual reality. And really the holodeck is better than the Oasis because when you go there, you're just immersed completely. You're actually there. You don't have to wear a suit or anything. You just live in this little world that you make on the holodeck for entertainment. I almost wonder if Halliday's name is even a sneaky reference to the holodeck. I don't know, could be, could not. But if you hated sunlight and human affection and joy, and you lived in an internet cave, what would you build? What would be the first fictitious world you'd want to build?
Oh, man. Heck. I could build anything?
I think so. Those seem to be the rules.
I'd really want to go to the Rings of Saturn. I don't know why. The Cassini mission fascinates me. I'd love to explore that.
So you'd have to make some stuff up, though.
What do you mean?
I don't know. Well, how much do we know about the Rings of Saturn? We have pretty good shots of that? Enough that you could reconstruct a version of it and run around and explore it?
Yeah, we've flown like spaceships through it and stuff. Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying. We can't one-to-one make it.
Right.
I don't know. I think that'd be really cool.
That's interesting that you would go somewhere real. That's fun.
What would you do?
I'd want to make worlds from fun fantasy places. The first time that I read through this, or listened to it on Audible rather, I was thinking Rivendell would be what I'd want to make. And then what do you know? Morrow beat me to it and uses his money to make a real live Rivendell.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Something from The Lord of the Rings would be really sweet.
That is cool.
You know, maybe I could make my own Bespin Cloud City from Empire Strikes Back. I didn't like the movie Avatar very much, but Pandora was really
those floating
cool.
islands were they were killer.
Yeah, I'd want that. It's kind of fun. I've designed a few disc golf courses, and I've made them in very difficult places to put in a course. And sometimes just before I fall asleep at night, I have these slightly awake dreams of having the power, like some sort of sylvan earth elven god wizard, to summon trees and make them appear out of nowhere so that my disc golf course would be awesome. And I'm always disappointed because I can't think of anything all that cool to make like the craziest disc golf course ever. It's the paradox of choice. If you can pick anything, it gets hard to pick.
You could have a disc golf course full of ints that would move as you threw the disc.
Oh, see, I've designed 3 courses and installed them, and I've thought about this for 15 years, and you just came up with something better in like half a second, man.
I don't know.
I feel like this is a competition, and you're winning.
Whatever.
But I'm on the comeback trail. So my other question from this chapter is, have you ever heard of Leopardon or Supaidaman from Japan?
I've heard of Supaidaman, and the only reason I've heard of Supaidaman is because one of my friends, he looked like Tobey Maguire. Is that his name?
Yeah.
Spider-Man guy? And so when we go down to South America to the orphanage, they call him Supaidaman. Supaidaman! Like in Peru, they say Supaidaman, which apparently is the Spanish way to say it, which made me think of that in the book here. So in a roundabout way, I've heard about Supaidaman.
Have you heard of his giant robot, Leopardon?
No, never.
Yeah, me neither. You would pick something better, right? What giant robot would you pick?
I'm going yellow lion from Voltron is what I'm doing.
You wouldn't just pick the whole shebang?
If you could just pick all of Voltron, I would do it. But in the book, they had to pick individual lions and they had to assemble Voltron. Yeah.
Which one is yellow lion?
I think it's a leg.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you had red.
It's humble of you.
What?
That's humble of you.
Well, yeah. So like, I think it was yellow is the left side as you're looking at Voltron leg, and then green is the bottom right. And then I want to say red is the right and blue is the left. Let's see if I get that right. I'm looking this up.
If you're even in the zip code, I'm impressed. Well, black is the body, right?
Yeah, black is. I mixed up
one.
Green and blue. I mixed up green and blue.
I would go with Devastator from the Transformers. The one where all the Constructicons go together. It was the first one where you put them all together. And that thing was a rickety piece of crap, man. Let me tell you, you save up all that money and you put them all together and you're like, now I'm going to crush the Autobots, except like arms keep falling off and stuff. It wasn't what you hoped it would be, but I imagine that it would be better if it were giant and I could ride in it and fight internet robots with it. In chapter 27, Parsable goes to a planet based on a Rush concept album. And there's a song, The Temples of Syrinx. It's about these priests who control all knowledge and stifle creativity and let you know what the approved thought is. They're the managers of thought. And in that song, there's a Bible line from Jesus, and the meek shall inherit the earth, from the Beatitudes. It feels like this Bible theme is intentional, and especially when I went and looked up that song and found that that line was in there. What do you feel like Cline is driving at with all of this imagery that floats around about creation, heaven, Bible, eternal life, God? Is it just an accident and a coincidence, or do you think he's making some bigger statement?
I have no idea. He's definitely making people think about different things, but there's a lot of references, very clear. Like even later on in the book, where the level 99 wizard has to hold his hands aloft in order to keep the shield going. I mean, that's clearly a reference to the Old Testament battle, right?
Clearly, except I hadn't thought of it until you said it.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'm somewhat familiar with the Bible, and I didn't even make the connection.
Yeah, there's a lot of things like that in the book. That's just, I don't know. It just seems like it. Shoto felt very Samson to me because he like takes everything down. I don't know.
Yeah, and maybe those are just stories we're so familiar with that we see things where they
that's
aren't.
possible. That's possible as well. Maybe it's just great storytelling, and these are epic stories about heroes doing battle. You know, maybe it just all works out. I don't know.
Yeah, and there's only so much stuff that's new. I don't know either. I know I really liked that the whole rush thing was included. I mean, he goes to this planet where only the approved ideas work, and the planet is in shambles. And I really thought that was interesting. Just this idea that if you go to a place where one elite group of people control thoughts and morality and dictate to everyone how things are going to be, that such a society would be unsustainable.
It's unbelievable to me that that's what you got out of that, because I got about it. He shredded a guitar behind a waterfall and learned a secret message that let him win the game. Dude, you need to back off the politics, man, in your brain, man, and enjoy.
How's that even politics?
Whatever, he's like to control the thoughts of the whatever. Whatever,
that's
dude,
what the album is.
Okay.
No,
this
I'm
is
not
what
backing off of that at all.
He grabs the guitar out of the stone and goes,
picked the album.
And then he starts
make that sound.
Starts playing the guitar with his guitar pick that he pulled out of inventory, which I thought was completely rad. It's like, 1 second, let me go to my inventory and grab the guitar pick. I like that. I thought it was cool. So, whatever. Control thoughts. Whatever, dude.
That
awesome.
chapter clearly had a different effect on each of us. We are in chapter 28, and this is the one where Wade sets his plan in motion. What did you think of his plan to get intentionally arrested?
I thought that was pretty wild. Like, the drop cops show up and they're going to pull him out. I don't know. I thought it was pretty clever. This was a neat twist in the book. But what I thought about was the fear of willingly surrendering. Have you ever done that? Like, okay, I'm just going to let these people take me. I've never done that ever.
No,
I came
not like
close one time when there was a misunderstanding and the cops thought I had done something wrong that I haven't. And so I just surrendered to them. But it was a weird feeling.
Yeah, it had that effect on me too. I felt weird and out of control. And I have this thing though, where if the hero is in jail or is captured by the enemy, that really agitates me at a subconscious level. Bugs me. I just want them to be back in the real world and players in the game. It feels like they're out of the game when they're captured. So this unsettled me. And correct me if I'm
actually
wrong.
Deeper into the game. That's what was so cool about it. It's like the levels just got more complicated.
Yeah. And I didn't know that. I mean, because the storytelling is smart and good at this point. And so I'm sure there's method to the madness, but I don't know what it is. And he's getting welded out of his place and hauled away. It was really pretty clever and raised a lot of questions. I felt like this sequence really put a gust of wind back in the sails for me.
Yeah, me too.
And speaking of being able to sit at home and have other people bring you food that is delicious, I had my first experience with HelloFresh this week.
Okay, so this episode of No Dumb Questions is also sponsored by HelloFresh, and here's my question. Dude, we had this long discussion about your poor eating habits, and, I gave you a hard time about it, but I had HelloFresh sent to your house, and I really want to know, don't make it sound awesome because they're sponsoring this. Tell me what you really honestly thought. Like vegetables. You ate vegetables, right?
Well, first of all, thank you for putting those parameters on this, since normally I do lie. But this time I'm going to tell the truth, Destin.
Yeah,
because
just
you
one
asked
time
me
tell
to.
the truth.
Okay, they sent me a meal that involved meatloaf, another one that involved salmon, another one that involved chicken. Of those three,
did you just eat the meat and then just do away with the vegetables?
No, dude, I ate it all.
Yeah.
Okay, so it shows up in this really cool foil container. I didn't know that was coming. And everything really is. It's fresh and cold. Put it in the fridge. And we got one of those out and we made it. And it comes with this big, beautiful, really nicely printed card that you could put in a binder and you'd have that recipe forever. And every single ingredient didn't just have the name on the list. It had a picture. So I could do this. I felt immediately not intimidated. And my wife was busy. So I decided I'd cook, which I only grill. So I put it all out there and I got the stuff together and I started mixing the things together and I did a whole Snap story about it. and it worked. I made some kind of salmon thing, and I don't even normally like salmon, except this was completely good. And there's also the sweet honey vinaigrette salad thing that came with it. I don't eat stuff
Vegetables?
like that. There were vegetables involved. I don't
And
even
you
know the
ate
name
it.
of the vegetable, man. It's a green leafy. I don't even know what it was. And so
Was it like a bok
I
choy
mixed
or
that
something?
whole thing. No, I'd know that because I play Plants vs. Zombies, but it was something else. And so I ate it, and I ate the whole salad. I've never eaten a whole salad. And part of the reason that I think I ate it all was because I made it and I understood what was going into it, and each ingredient alone smelled good. Whereas if I just encountered that all mixed together, I think it wouldn't have worked for me. So
I know.
and then we did the next one, and then we did the next one, and I honestly liked all of it, which is difficult for me to admit.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to just be weird about it and just say like you ate wrong, now you ate good.
You are being weird about it.
I am being weird about it, but I really enjoy the fact that you make it and like you're proud of it. You know, it's like the purple
Yes.
duck you colored in kindergarten. You're like, I made this.
Do you take pictures of it on the plate after you get done?
I do.
I do too. I took pictures of all of them and compared them to the picture to demonstrate that in a manly way, I followed the instructions.
So here's how it works. If you want to try it, go to HelloFresh.com and use the promo code NDQ30, and that gets you $30 off of the first week's order.
I hope that somebody like me is listening to this who is like, this is an ad for someone else, but I will listen out of courtesy to these people because they're talking about a book I'm interested in. And I hope that on my word, you will give the thing a shot because I am the last person that should work on. And it was genuinely fun and I learned something and it was good. I think you'll like it too.
Okay, this is the beginning of level 3, which starts in chapter 29 when he's in IOI headquarters. And I really like the idea of controlling employees with perks based on their performance. You know, it's kind of like the Flair in Office Space or whatever. And
Yeah.
it's really easy to make fun of this while we're reading a book and like the hero has to deal with this stuff. But have you ever done this to anyone or like conversely had somebody else doing it to you, like trying to control you by saying, you know, keep doing this and, you know, I'll move
Yeah,
you a little.
you mean like the carrot instead of the stick?
Yeah, but like the carrot's something silly that they make you
Uh-huh.
think you want, but you don't actually. It's like you don't care about that, but for some
But
reason you want it.
You don't care about it until a culture of caring about it exists.
Yes,
And then it becomes social currency. And then
Yep.
people, I mean, look at Reddit karma.
oh, dude,
That is worth nothing. And people get so weird over it.
yeah, it's a very good example.
Thanks. Even with the carrots, though, the IOI work environment still feels like just a conscious version of the Matrix. Like all these people are basically human batteries creating productivity for this corporation. They can't leave. They're not in control. In a way, though, I almost feel like the Matrix scenario would be better, where at least you're asleep in this magical
Plug them
dream
into
world.
a port.
Yeah, I mean, here you actually have to work in these awful cubicles. It sounded like a bad place to work.
But you could get a kitten poster if you worked your butt off.
Hang in there. The next 2 chapters of this book were totally different feeling for me. They were like a caper movie, like Ocean's 11 or something. And I had tons of fun with the infiltration and all of that as I started to be able to see what Wade's plan was. But when he hacks into their network and is going through all the files on his friends, he finds the file that shows the video of them murdering Daito.
Yep.
Why would you film that, let alone keep it on a company hard drive? Not a rhetorical question.
I don't know. I thought that was pretty dumb. Well, I mean, I'm assuming everybody wore like helmet cams or something like that. I don't know. I thought that was dumb. Another thing I had about this chapter is I don't understand how he could memorize the access codes before he went in. Last night, I was trying to figure out how to reprogram my dishwasher because it was like in some weird mode and you had to like hold buttons down. And I read a document on it last night. I couldn't tell you how to do that today, let alone being drug in and doing all this stuff and then having to figure out it.
Okay, but if your life depended on it and your friends' lives depended on it and you knew that's what you were going to do, you could commit it to memory.
Yeah, but when they drug him out of his apartment, he was watching Explorers. If I knew I was about to go into prison and I had to have these access codes like in the front of my brain, I would have been ramming the access codes into the front of my brain when they drug me out of the apartment.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, he was taking anxiety medicine and watching some old movie.
Yeah, consistent with his character.
Yeah,
I don't know. He seems like he cares sometimes. He's pretty casual other times. But for me, chapter 30 even further stole Jeopardy from the story because the bad guys are even more inept looking. Honestly, incriminating smoking gun evidence of capital crimes that you committed sitting there on your own hard drive that somebody can hack into with, well, it's an old code, but it checks out. I mean, that's all it takes. Come on. These guys are clowns at this point.
That one's a little iffy.
31.
Okay, so he did get access to the data, but he poured through all of it and he watched it all. And later, of course, Artemis gets upset that he saw a picture of her, whatever. Here's my simple question. If you're given access to data you're not supposed to have access to, do you look through it?
Well, it depends on what the data is. And
well, let's just go simple. Let's make this simple. Let's say I butt dial you.
You do?
And there's a there's a conversation going on in the background.
Yes.
Do you listen to it?
No.
Why?
No, I don't. You've done that several times.
Really?
Never from work or anywhere like that. But I mean, just family time, stuff like that when I'd expect you to call off work hours. You've called a few times and I can tell that, yeah, you're talking with Tara or the kids or something. And I either just hang up and ignore it or I call you back. But it's your life. And I think especially at the level of friends, you get to share with me what you want to. And I think you're pretty generous with the aspects of your life that you share with me and vice versa. And I don't know, feel dirty to prey on that trust and pry into anything that you didn't necessarily want out there.
Okay. Yeah, I do the same. I immediately hang up if somebody butt dials me. Personal policy. If you don't have that personal connection to me, if it's somebody else, if it's a corporate entity or something, you're given access to some data. Like, for example, there are open webcams on the internet. You know this, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like street corners and stuff. You could just go.
Jackson, Wyoming has one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, some of them are not supposed to be open. Some people have webcams in their house and they just like don't ever secure it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Ew.
If you have access to that kind of stuff, would you go look at that, or do you have the same type policy on people that you don't know?
I think voyeurism is gross. I don't even really like reality programming because it feels like a violation. I know these people are getting paid. I get it, but I don't like it. I don't like that level of access.
So you
I'd like to think I would not.
So you understand why Artemis is mad at the end of the book then?
Nah, okay. Well, now you're baiting me into that. Here's the thing. If someone does that and as a result, my house doesn't get blown up and it was a friend, in that situation, I understand why she was upset, but I think there are two things going on. One, she's upset because she obviously has feelings for Parsable, and that messes up her whole plan for how she gamed it out that they might eventually have a relationship. But on the other hand, like, she's not dead, so I think she was thankful for that. But that's a very extreme situation.
That's a good point. So, I mean, what you would say is that if somebody's looking out for your good, you're okay with them spying on you. I understand that. Let's move on to the next question. Next question. Go ahead.
No. You did this to yourself. No, did you notice the caveat I threw in about a friend?
I know, man.
That was intentional because I knew what you were going to do.
I know.
Because you've butt dialed me several times as you were planning this episode, and I listened to you telling Tara that you were going to try to trap me with that question. I've said too much.
Your question, man.
I don't know what my question was. Now I'm all angry. Oh, yeah. Okay, I loved chapter 31, and I mentioned about chapter 30 that this stuff felt like a caper movie, which is pretty fun at this point. And for me, the tension of him getting out of the building completely worked.
With the squeaky shoes?
All of it, and the bleeding ear, the hand on the shoulder when somebody told him about his ear bleeding. Man, chapter 31 is the most invested I was in the entire read through. Did it have any effect like that on you?
Yeah, I was invested, but it was more so when he got his house blown up. I did like that he bought a gun from a vending machine. I was like, what?
Okay, we got to talk about the gun.
Yeah.
So you've heard this literary term Chekhov's gun?
Nope.
Okay, if a book describes a gun, the gun will be used later. If you are watching a horror movie and there's an axe hanging on the wall above the fireplace and we linger on the axe, you're supposed to note there's an axe there so that it doesn't come out of nowhere when somebody uses an axe later.
Okay.
So he goes to a vending machine and he buys a gun, and that's the last we ever see from the gun, right?
Yep.
Why is that in there?
Because he bought a gun from a vending machine. It was a description of what society was like then. That's what that was about. It's like, yeah, society has degraded so much that you can just buy a gun from a vending machine. I thought it was an interesting twist because, like, gun rights advocates would be like, yeah, man, give everybody a gun. But a vending machine? The interesting thing that is, he had to scan his identity, so they, in theory, did the background check.
On Bryce Lynch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting.
I wish he would have used it at some point. Or
really?
Yeah. What I wanted to see him do was get into a situation where he needed to operate an actual gun. And I wanted to see him go through the psychological difficulty of, like, I wanted to see the disconnect between killing people in the Oasis and holding an actual gun.
Oh, yeah.
Who knows what happens? I wanted to see him wrestle it through, either not knowing how to use it or being morally conflicted. And so I felt like there was this buildup with no payoff.
Huh. Valid.
Okay. Your point is 2. We can still be friends. Let's do 32.
Okay. In chapter 32, the high 5, or I guess at this point, the high 4 meet, and they have this moment where Parsible's like, and I'm going to get everybody on my side by sending them this Braveheart speech email. And so
right.
my question is, do you think that behind every Braveheart speech is a really scared person hoping to believe them?
Yes, I really did. I thought it was very strange to know the psychology of the guy giving the ride up and down the lines and bang the shield speech. I also think it's really funny that that's your question, because I'm just going to read the question I wrote for you.
Uh-huh.
Where did Parsible's email rank for you among inspiring rally the troops speeches in movies? So apparently we were thinking the same thing on that. Yeah. It didn't, for me, it didn't stack up real well. It came off as hollow and silly, and the fact that he used fancy internet medieval king, we summon thee to the aid of the
I like that his buddies called him
inappropriate.
out on it. I like that. I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, that was good. So you did not find it inspiring? You did not feel rallied to action?
I found it cute. It cute, and it didn't need to be written. The only thing that needed to be written was, yo, you know what's going down tomorrow, noon, be there or be square. Yeah. That's really all that needed to be written. But it was fun that it was, an attempt, and that they called him out for it.
Yeah, and maybe the fact that it sucked is the fun of the whole thing, and I just missed it. At the end of this chapter, Ogden Morrow shows up again, and I felt disappointment when he showed up, because I could tell, man, they're going to use him to be the mentor character who helps nudge Parzival toward where he needs to be. And you know who I wanted to be the mentor character?
No. Mrs. G from the
Yes.
zombie Mrs. G?
Well, no, I didn't want her to be dead. I wanted her to be, not in her trailer, or somewhere else. And she finds him and some old wisdom. And I needed a character who had some history with a younger, different version of Wade to hold up a mirror that only people from your past can hold up, to teach him something and help him grow. And instead, it's an internet celebrity who's way older and not a peer, who is withholding his enormous powers that could just solve the whole thing in an instant anyway. It's just not who I wanted to mentor him. I like Mrs. G, and I'm still sour about her getting blown up.
But he did have an honest-to-God torch that he pulled off the wall. I thought that was pretty rad.
That did help. Okay.
Yeah,
that did help.
I like that.
But serious question, help me with the plot here. Is there a reason that Og couldn't just use his brain laser powers like he did at the dance party to go and kill all the Sixer avatars on behalf of the people he obviously wanted to win?
Yeah, there was. I mean, he told Halliday that he was going to let the game play out. He had to officiate. And, even when they were at the end there in the haptic rig and he patches their voices into him, he says, hey, Parzival, is that okay with you? So
Yeah,
you're right. He respects the game that his buddy made.
Yeah, and he respects the game that his buddy made more than he dislikes Sorrento and the Sixers and the idea of the whole thing being ruined.
Yeah, he's got his priorities in line.
But are those good priorities? I mean, which is more true to the vision of Halliday, staying out of it or keeping it from being completely destroyed and ruined and becoming exploitative?
Yeah, I would have interfered for sure.
Oh, if you have eye lasers and you're invincible, you might have an obligation to help in the virtual world.
Yeah, so That actually segues into my chapter 33 question. If you had super user access, would you abuse it? I mean, another way of saying this is like, does absolute power corrupt absolutely? Because you could say that listening in to private chat rooms is a corruption of power.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think Og was really strange with when he intervened and when he didn't.
Would you do it? I don't care about Og. Would you do it? You could go into any private internet chat right now. Do you use that power?
No.
How do you not?
No, it just doesn't belong to me.
How do you not use it? If you're the only person in the world that has the ability to float in between all internet traffic, how do you not use that?
What are you going to use it for?
Dude, you could like stop terrorists. I don't know. I mean, that's what
okay,
you thought
so we're
I would
going
say.
right there.
Yeah, what would you do?
But here's the thing. Okay, yep, I could do a lot of good, but I'm also creating a new relationship with everyone else on Earth that I don't like. Just in the very act of doing that, even if it's for your own good, I am becoming king and they are becoming my underlings. They have privacy at my good pleasure, or don't have it if I've decided that's what would be better for everyone. I don't like the relationship that establishes with everyone else, and I think it's hubris. I think it would be pride on my part to think that I own everyone else's words and secrets and ideas. I don't. They own themselves and the product of their minds.
I don't know that you're being honest with yourself. I think if I'm honest with myself, I say, yeah, I probably would use it. I would use that power.
If I was going to use it, I think I would seek permission to do it. I think the idea of a warrant, which dates back a very long time in human history, is a stroke of genius, because what you're doing is you're agreeing with everybody else that even if you have enough power to go and look, you don't own that other person, and you're going to need a really dang good reason that has to be vetted by other people and a part of a process, publicly even. I think warrants aren't just a government invention of America. I think they're an ethical principle that if we ignore it, it's really bad on the personal level. Well, okay, so what if I say, hey, if I ever butt dial you, you're welcome to listen to the entire thing? Does that change it?
No.
Why not?
I don't know, because I'm scared you might say something about me I don't want to know.
That's a pretty honest answer.
Yeah.
Have I ever butt dialed you? I'm trying to think like what you might be referencing here. Are we in a fight?
I don't know.
What if we got 3 or 4 friends together and they were like, we all think it would be best if you listen to what Matt's saying? Then would it be okay?
I don't know. That gets weird.
But I don't think it does get weird. I think, no, even if it's 4 or 5 of you, you still don't own me and you still don't own my words. It doesn't become okay. Everybody imagines that they'll be the one that's on the throne and making everything better. But the bottom line is it's a big step to take ownership over other people's space and other people's stuff. And I don't think it would turn me into something good. I think it would turn me into something bad. No, I wouldn't look.
Yeah. I believe absolute power probably corrupts absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Chapter 34. This is the first half of the big final fight scene. Chapter 34 has all the giant robots coming out to play. People answer Parsable's call and they show up and they're going to duke it out.
Okay, the little robot that goes and gets the antimatter friction induction charge was awesome. And it reminds me of a combination of Samson like pushing down the temples in the Bible and that battle where Moses, right? Is holding his hands up.
When he holds his hands up, they keep winning.
Yeah, exactly. It's a combination of that. It's like Samson taking down Moses in my head. I thought that was pretty clever. So,
yeah, which feeds into our idea that all the narrative that we've gathered in our whole lives, we're going to see it all over the place here. But it was a really cool moment. And I didn't know how what Wade did at IOI was going to ultimately pay off. And that was a pretty good payoff.
Yeah, I like that. My favorite thing about this chapter was the moment the shield collapsed and they were wondering if people were going to fight, that everybody was all in.
Yes. I tell you what, man, in action stories like this, there are 2 things that really make my blood pump. And one is the indecision of the squishy middle, the people who you don't know which way they're going to go. And the inspiration of the heroes causes them to demonstrate character and do what's right and take great risks as well. And man, the end of Guardians of the Galaxy when the cartoon raccoon.
I haven't seen it.
You haven't seen the first one?
Oh, yeah, I've seen the first one. Yeah.
Okay, where the cartoon raccoon is with all the spaceships and they're all fighting to defend their planet and they're all kind of enemies and bickering, but they're working together and their teamwork makes a big giant shield. I got emotional over that. I did not cry, so don't go on the "you cry too easy" rant here, but a little, just a little one of the because it was just so cool to see everybody rally for a common cause and set it all aside. The other thing that always weirdly gets me emotional in movies is movies where little girls do athletic hero things where they move really fast, because I picture my little girls and bravery and I think of their bravery and it does a thing to me in my heart.
My favorite line in the whole book, at least in the audiobook, is the way Will Wheaton read H saying, "It is on." By the way, how did we not even talk about the fact that H is a girl? How did we miss that?
Oh, because we're bad people and have done an awful job and missed something important.
I thought it was good.
Did you see it coming?
No, I know we didn't know a lot about H. I didn't know what she was going to look like. I thought it was a neat twist, a really good twist. And I like the awkwardness. They let the awkwardness linger and then they cut through it. I really like that.
Well, I love the way they cut through it. I was expecting another white guy like Parsable. And so it was very effective on me. Like, oh, you know what? Brilliant. Perfect. Well done.
Oh, yeah. Very good writing.
It was kind of a Good Samaritan moment where it seems like the story is going to be, and then a person just like you came along and was heroic. But the big twist of the story of the Good Samaritan is then, surprise, it was a Samaritan, someone just not like you, who you wouldn't hang out with and don't know much about.
Listening through it the second time was fun because you could see places where Cline was describing H, and he would always double down on the pronouns. He said this or blah, 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 and he always used that gender pronoun, which I thought was very interesting going through the second time. It's like, oh, he's conditioning me.
Well, and the other thing that you referenced that I loved is the awkwardness sat for a moment, and then I don't remember exactly what the line was, but Parsable made fun of H's weight or something.
That's going to be a really good moment in the movie, and I'm excited to be in the theater with all the people that didn't read the book and just listening to them laugh during that moment. I'm excited about that.
Oh, unless they dodge it because it's offensive.
Oh, they won't.
Don't be surprised if they don't want to risk offending extreme one end, most sensitive people, and they have it be like this really neat, you come to Jesus moment and it's all tender and stuff. If they do that, they ruin the movie. What is beautiful about the scene is that these two people are like, no, your brain and who you are and your soul is what I love about you. And you are my dear friend, whatever you're into, whatever you look like, whatever you believe. Cool. And so, well, this is how I treated you 5 seconds ago when I thought you were this. Well, if it really doesn't make any difference, then I'm still going to give you crap. And this is what it's going to sound like. Yeah. It was profound. And I can't believe we forgot to talk about it. Holy cow.
Yeah, it was really good.
Yeah, I love the moment.
Yeah, me too.
I just like the giant robot fight too. I hope they get licensing on every one of these characters and we get to see a mashup of stuff we'd never see anywhere else. We get to see what they look like against each other. I wish Sorrento had been out of the robot more. Again, I was disappointed that Sorrento is just a snidely whiplash, evil black mustache, but you don't know anything about him kind of bad guy.
I was very scared of Voltron. It's like, I like that they made Voltron evil. And
good point.
Yeah, and I was like, man, because he said they didn't even get a chance to form Voltron. I was like, whew, man, that's great.
That would have been bad.
Because that's the one thing you always want when you watch Voltron. You're like, form it, and then they didn't, and you're excited. I thought that was neat too.
Yeah, that's a really interesting flip because it's ridiculous that gimmick worked so well on us as kids. Well, we got these 5 robots. They could turn into 1. I don't know, kids. Maybe they will in this episode, and maybe they won't. You'll have to watch.
And it
I hope
worked.
they do.
And they always do. I never thought about that, but yeah, it's like, oh god, we got to form Voltron.
Pretty easy gimmick.
35. Shoto's self-sacrifice. Thought that was cool. I liked it.
I thought it was really cool in principle, but when I listened to it the second time, I was expecting this really smart thing that Shoto did that he laid down his internet life so that others might live.
Yeah, and then, I thought the same thing.
The second time through, I was like, oh wait, that didn't really do anything.
Well, the first time I listened to the book, I remember it being this epic thing that he did. And it was, I got emotional and I was really happy and stuff. And the second time I was like, plot development. Maybe it's because I knew it was coming and the rabbit was already out of the hat. Maybe that was it.
Well, you got 4 bullets in the gun. You got H, Shoto, Parsable, and Artemis. And it just felt like we wasted one of those bullets on lightly grazing the side of a Mecha Godzilla.
The shoulder blaster or whatever
it was.
No, that was Artemis that did that.
It just wasn't enough.
Yeah.
Because Shoto is my favorite Gunter, I wanted him to contribute more. And I thought his character, he deserved a bigger contribution to the ultimate victory at the end.
Yeah, I kind of wanted him to disembowel Sorrento with the sword that he was given by Parsable. I thought something like that would be awesome, but it didn't happen. So
I didn't just want that. I wanted him to win.
Yeah.
I was really hoping up through chapter 35 that Parsable and Artemis would discover the meaning of true love, and H would find fulfillment in finally having physical human friendship, and that Shoto would be the one who could calmly and with sobriety, nobly and justly lead the internet from here on out. I thought it would have been a great wrap up. So I was bummed when he was out of the game.
Yeah, but he made it clear that he didn't care about the egg anymore. He only wanted revenge. He made that clear. He stayed true to his character.
Yeah. You're using my own language against me.
So why did Parsable have to kill Sorrento?
Well, Parsable doesn't kill Sorrento. I mean, just his avatar, you mean, right?
Yeah. He could have went in quickly, but he didn't. He stayed out and he went to, he turned into Ultraman and then he turbo sliced him or whatever it was called. Mm-hmm. All that good stuff.
Pretty sure that was it.
Yeah, it was vengeance. And I didn't need to see that.
I feel like the story falls really flat from about the middle of chapter 35 to the end.
It's going to be a really good movie.
I like this book, but I really hope they improve the ending or that it just plays better on screen. But I agree. Yeah. I felt like the whole thing deteriorated into a Call of Duty match. Been in plenty of those. Well, we're just shooting each other and stuff and doing things, and like instinct took over in this way. But all this thought, I mean, the guy became an indentured servant to his arch enemy in order to set this plan in motion, and he's willing to jeopardize everything to fight a Mechagodzilla because he should and wants to, and this is something I have to do alone. And it's just nonsense character motivations to me. It was really fun until the way it wrapped up. And then, okay, well, you shot him from a distance. No conversation with Sorrento. No airing your grievances about what Sorrento did to people you love or anything. Just an impersonal laser as a head bounced down the road. That was very unsatisfying to me.
Okay, 36. The Cataclysm detonates. They do the Schoolhouse Rocks thing.
Mm-hmm.
They all open the gate. They go in there, and they were about to walk in. Kaboom. Everything dies, with the exception of Parsable because he's got the quarter, which I thought was very clever. Did you see that twist coming?
It was clever. No, I did not. It was really fun. Fun way to represent what the extra life looks like. A green mushroom would have been too obvious. And for whatever reason, this book really avoided Nintendo stuff too. I don't know what that's about.
Yeah, I noticed that as well. Maybe they know something we don't. Maybe there's like Nintendo licensing is hard to get or something like that.
I've heard it's brutal.
Maybe that's why.
Something to do with it. Yeah. The Cataclysm, that's an example of Chekhov's gun. They talked about the thing earlier, so you know the thing will get used later. So this time there was the payoff. You were going to ask something. What was that?
Yeah, I was like, maybe he wrote it with Nintendo stuff in there, and maybe his editor changed it because they checked on it or something like that.
It seems weird that there wouldn't be more 8-bit Nintendo stuff.
Yep.
That is so formative for this age.
I don't know.
Yeah, Ernest Cline he's in his mid to late 40s at this point, so it could just be that his wonder years were enough before ours that the gray box wasn't in play.
Maybe not.
No, I don't know. Not. Whatever the case, the Cataclysm blows up. Everybody's dead. And this was a moment where I felt some personal irritation with the Sixers because I have played games with this kind of player. Have you ever played with someone who does if I can't win, no one wins mentality? Second grade,
Daniel Duggar and I were playing checkers, and we got to the last move, and he had one guy on the back row, and I moved to the space right in front of him, so he had to move one way or the other, and he said, "I quit." I was like, "You can't quit." He's like, "Yeah, I just did. I quit." I was like, "You have to move so I can jump you in the game."
He wouldn't give it to you?
No. Second grade, I still haven't finished that game of checkers.
Have you like looked that guy up on Facebook or something to find
I
out
know
if
where
you
he works. I know where he works. I might just take a checkerboard up there. Move the checker, Daniel. What is this about, sir? Do it.
That if I can't win, no one wins mentality.
Can't stand it.
Oh, I can't stand it. I can't stand it. Look, we played. I lost. I'm going to stand here. I'm going to take it. I'm not going to like it. I hate losing, but I will stand here and take it, and I'll expect you to do the same when I beat you.
Super
Dirty Sixers.
Super clever that the IOI guys had people just outside the sector, and they got on their speed pods or whatever and came in immediately after the Cataclysm detonated. That was super clever.
Did you feel like their strategy in general was pretty good, IOI?
Yeah, it's pretty smart.
I really did too. I thought they played the game very well. They definitely went with more of like more might and less thinking. But if you're going all might, they made clever moves. Chapter 37. What were your honest impressions of the home stretch? Once Cataclysm goes off and Sorrento's beaten and now we're just into Anorak's castle. Did this keep your attention? Was it interesting? Was there tension for you? Or did it feel like this was mop-up duty?
Well, I thought it was mop-up, but, there were some things in here that was obviously playing to the fan base. Like the Holy Grail, the flick sync with the Holy Grail, that was just fun, right? Because we all know lines from the Holy Grail. Which, for example, what is your favorite line from the Holy Grail? Monty Python and Search for the Holy Grail.
I couldn't quote the line directly to you, but it would be a tie between the debate about how fast swallows can fly and the reasoning through the people who want to kill the witch.
So, logically, if she weighs the same as a duck, she's made of wood.
And therefore...
A witch! A witch!
Yep.
The best, my favorite line that I can quote would be the one about the flesh wound.
Yeah, the Holy Hand Grenade is one of my favorites. Thou shalt count to 3.
3 shall be the number thou shalt count, and the number of the counting shall be 3. 4 shalt thou not count, neither count thou 2, excepting that thou then proceed to 3. 5 is right out.
That's one of my favorites. I enjoyed that.
Did you rent that for like birthday party slumber parties in 6th grade?
No, we did this thing in college called Crazy Movie Night, and we watched that one night. Yeah, and so I was like, "What the heck are we watching?" It was so foreign to me.
You'd never seen it to that point?
No, I didn't enjoy it the first time I watched it, and then I started to understand, and then I liked it. It was good.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought it was mop-up duty, but it was kind of fun. They were going through the different things. Obviously, he had to play adventure because it was referenced earlier in the book. And, it was the very first egg of all times. And so using Kira's Dungeons and Dragons name for the password, there was just like so many things that he obviously just knew what to do. I'm doing air quotes here. That was all like trying to make it more interesting and trying to show how clever he was. Whatever. Didn't really do it for me, but I enjoyed it.
See, and on that point again, and I keep coming back to this, the whole God, Bible, afterlife thing came into play. But like knowing that Lucasia, was that the name? Or whatever it was? Knowing that name, it was like Parsable had gotten so inside the head of Halliday by carefully studying all of this stuff that he could anticipate his moves, even though he didn't have an immediate personal relationship with him. And, that's one way to study the Bible. So just a lot of this feels familiar to me because studying that almanac is a lot like what I do, except, I think there's something behind it.
Chapter 38. Okay, I see what you're saying there. But the resurrection sequence, I'll call it, where they like bring all the people back to life, where, Parsable, makes Shoto come back. That's the only one I really cared about. So Shoto came back, Artemis came back, and he's all powerful all of a sudden. He can do all these weird things.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that?
I think it's really troubling.
Well, my immediate thought was to all the people that like fought in the battle. He could just go and be like, and you, here's your avatar back,
Mm-hmm. But as best as we can tell, he doesn't.
Why is it troubling to you?
I think it's okay. 2 reasons. One, the ending of this feels like the ending of old Disney movies. And then the evil was purged from the land, and all the green grass grew again, and there were rainbows, and everybody was alive again, and everything was happy. It just, I don't know, like that takes away all the jeopardy that I felt before. It's okay. Let there be some losses. But what was scary about it for me is I don't trust Parsible's character nearly enough to make him god of the internet. He meets his maker, or the maker of his avatar, the one who made all this possible, and they have this conversation. He receives eternal life. He is given infinite resources. He will never have limitations again. No one will ever be able to tell him no again.
He's in video game heaven?
No,
Man,
he's not in video game heaven. He's video game God. Video game heaven would be one thing. Infinite power, and he's even given the power to commit Armageddon and destroy and wipe out everything without consulting anyone at his own judgment.
Yeah, that's true.
I think he's going to turn completely evil. Tell me I'm wrong.
Black robes and all.
Black robes. They
So
certainly
absolute
are.
power corrupts absolutely.
Yeah, I think Lord Acton is the guy who said that. And
Is it?
I think he's right.
Did you like the fact that that he got the girl? I guess that was the last chapter, wasn't it? I'm sorry.
Let's get to, well, okay, what about this? Halliday, they have their meeting, and Halliday tells him, get outside, go live a little. But he says that after subjecting him to a game that's consumed half of his life that requires him to not be outside living a little. What is with this guy? Did that seem contradictory to you?
Yeah, he's just a weirdo. Yeah, Halliday's just strange. Like the whole book is about how weird he is and how he's not social and all that good stuff.
And how everybody got duped into playing this game. And in a way, 4 people kind of won. But all along, there was supposed to be one winner, which means everyone else is the loser. You lost those, whatever it was, 5 or 8 or 10 years of doing anything else as you chased this thing down. It was a really fun game, but it's also kind of a cruel game.
Is the game over? Well, I guess just finding his egg. The Oasis isn't over.
The Oasis isn't over. No, I mean the Easter egg hunt.
I did like the line at the end where he says, he met her, chapter 39. At the end here, he says something along the lines of, I met her, blah, blah, blah. And it was the first time in my life I realized I did not want to log back in.
This is a great way to end the book.
I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah. And it's kind of cool, too, because it redeems his conversation with Halliday a bit, that maybe Parsable figured this out. He learned this lesson from Artemis, not from Halliday. You don't get the impression at all that Parsable is in any way suspicious of his conversation with Halliday, so I'm reading this in. But yeah, that was my favorite part of the meeting with Artemis, is the effect they had on each other.
Yeah.
And also that it seemed like she didn't feel quite as much of a need to present a different version of herself anymore. That had to be a huge unexplored breakthrough for her.
Yeah, I thought it was a good ending.
Yeah.
It was simple. It didn't try to be more than it was. I thought the fight scene tried to be a lot, but I thought it was good.
Yeah, I thought the fight scene was interesting and then turned disappointing quickly. The Halliday conversation reminded me a little bit of the meeting with the architect at the end of Matrix 2, whichever one that was, except Halliday was more amiable. The architect was smart and aloof and combative. I think it's interesting to support my theory that there's a lot of God, Bible, Jesus, eternal life overtones, that this whole game was called an Easter egg hunt, and that at the end, the God who made the internet creation is resurrected, and he finds, they find the resurrected God. 'Cause Easter.
That's a stretch for me, man.
I don't think it is. No, I think for all the other levels of intentionality that are happening here, I don't think the author misses something like that.
I'm Googling Ready Player One biblical overtones.
I bet you get 10 billion results. 8 billion.
No, I didn't. No, I think you're trying too hard to make it work.
I disagree.
We should do a podcast.
I think this is, it's finally time. I think this whole thing is a big, fun, silly story, first of all, but it's exploring to the furthest ends the idea of a simulated reality. And in a simulated reality, there would need to be a greatest being that could be conceived of. And that greatest being that could be conceived of, the most powerful thing in there would be the God of that creation. Everybody wants eternal life and immortality in there. And if you want to know the God of that creation, especially if the contest is for immortality and eternal life, you have to read the documents associated with what that being is into. I think it's there.
Well, another thing is, you could say that it was shaping Parzival, and like he got more and more selfless as he went along. He started thinking of others and doing, aligning himself with the golden rule more. You could say that he was transforming as it went along.
He gave away some of his stuff at the end. I mean, there are redeeming things about Parzival. But
yeah, okay. One thing that I thought was really resonant across everyone who participated in this and decided to contact me on Snapchat or Twitter is that everyone was sad when they finished the book. Because the experience of reading the book was so fun. Immediately when you're over, you're like, crap, he got the girl and it's over. Dang it. You know what I mean?
Very abruptly.
Yeah. It's like, oh man, happily ever, what the heck?
I felt that way. Did you? Were you bummed it was over?
Yeah, I was bummed.
Normally, when I'm bummed something is over, it's because I'm going to miss the characters. That is not the case here. I think I would have missed Halliday if it weren't for the closing scene, and then I realized, you're super interesting and a good character, but I don't like you that much.
I missed the adventure is
I just
what it
missed
was.
the world. I missed the world.
I wanted another gate. I wanted the Oasis back. I
Mm-hmm.
wanted that. That's what I wanted.
I wanted to go see what it was like when people built more of the stuff that I was into. Like build the planets from the Transformers of the movie. I want to see that. I want to see some stuff from Willow.
Everything would blow up. Michael Bay.
Yeah, well, okay, no. The animated 1985.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like the legit one. No, there'll be no Michael Baying. But I mean, there's all this other stuff. It's like this limitless realm of imagination for all the things that I've ever cared about, for good reasons or not, to come to life, and for me to imagine myself being able to mush them all together, like I did when I took all my toys from all these different universes out into the backyard and had them all fight and play together. I didn't care that they were different brands. I just chucked them together. It's like Ernest Cline is a 40-some-year-old version of kid me mushing all of his favorite stuff together, and I just wanted more of that.
Yeah, that's a good observation.
So obviously you like the book, or you wouldn't have recommended it to me, and you wouldn't have recommended it to the entire internet, and you wouldn't have done this whole conversation about it. But where does it rank for you in terms of your favorite fiction books?
It's pretty far up there. It's not like over the top clever. I really liked it as a one-off. Like I enjoyed the Oasis. I enjoyed the concept, the story, the adventure. I think it's a really good one-off. I don't think this plays out. I know there's another book called Armada. I haven't read it.
Me neither.
I have mixed reviews from other people, so I'm scared to read it because I don't want to corrupt what I've experienced right now. You know what I mean? And so for me, this was really fun. And when I read things, sometimes I want real heavy things that make me think. Other times I want things that are just really fun, and the experience of reading the book is fun, or listening to the book in this case. That's what this was for me. It was a nice respite from the heavy stuff. This was cotton candy, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think I'd put it in the same place. It doesn't crack my top 20. I don't know what does off the top of my head, but I really liked the book, and I would recommend it to others. I wouldn't recommend it to somebody who wants to study narrative structure and learn about how stories work, because this breaks a bunch of rules, and sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't. But you said it well. It was fun. I had fun the whole time. I felt like I was being taken along on an adventure, and well, sometimes I want to be forced to think about complex things, and sometimes I just want to have a blast, and it worked for that. So thanks for the recommendation.
Yeah. I think one of the things I liked most about it was the peek into a dystopian future. I like that for some reason.
Right now we're in a funk, and we have been since the 1960s, 1970s. The future will be worse. The future will be bad. Everything will break. There'll be zombies and vampires, and you'll get eaten if you take your kid on a road. Everything's bad. And I want to see creative writers come up with roadmaps to things being awesome in the foreseeable future, and see what people can cook up that might be fun to look forward to.
That's an interesting take on it.
This was a ton of effort and energy for you and I just to read the thing a bunch and record all of this stuff and take notes. It's been very, very fun. But the thing that's fun about this episode is everybody who read the book also invested a ton to do it. I think that's kind of a neat thing.
It's like the battle at the end where everybody just jumps in. I feel like, all the messages I've been getting of people listening to Ready Player One, it's awesome. Thank you very much if you did that. We really appreciate it. You supported the sponsor, which was Audible. That helps us out a ton. Thank you also for supporting HelloFresh if you choose to do that. This is really, we're very appreciative. Thank you very much.
And I want to mention one other thing. We had kind of a cool thing happen. Just a listener decided that they wanted to sponsor this show as well, but didn't want any credit. So they actually did their own self-sponsorship of this show. It's kind of weird because we can't thank them. So this is our invisible thank you. That was a really, really cool thing and kind of humbling. So thank you to you and to everybody who supports the show.
That's a big deal. Hey, on the way out, do you want to talk about the Rome thing?
Yes. So Sunday, June 4th at 11 a.m., I'm going to be at the Ara Pacis in Rome. I'm going to bring a few of my friends. I'm going to be hanging out there. And so if you're in Rome and you feel like meeting up and saying hello, the Ara Pacis at 11 a.m. on Sunday, June 4th, 2017. Be fun to see you.
I want to say thank you to Gordon McGladdery of A Shell in the Pit. He does the sound and stuff for Smarter Every Day. He turned our intro and outro music into video game music, which was really cool for this episode. We're really appreciative. And it's
16-bit Golden Axe style music. I loved it. Can we put that on Patreon? Give it to our patrons if they want it for like a ringtone or something like that?
Gordon said yes, we can totally do that. So that will be coming to you via Patreon.
Sweet. All right, I think that's everything, buddy. We calling it a night?
Yes. Again, thank you to everyone who participated in this. It was a blast. Looking forward to your comments on the subreddit.
Agreed.